starts with me.
The Green Bay Packers select Jordan Morgan, tackle, Arizona.
Versatile offensive lineman like we like, really athletic. Feel he could probably play 4 positions for us.
Well, they went offensive line, but certainly not the direction we anticipated.
It's not a sexy fit. Cooper DeJean would have been a sexy fit.
I have him listed as the 17th best available player.
That particular cheesehead doesn't seem excited.
Everything froze, and I got that call.
2-time team captain, our kind of guy.
The Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams.
I'm good. My fortunes are changing.
The Minnesota Vikings select
J.J. McCarthy,
quarterback, Michigan.
J.J. McCarthy, if he's got to develop, he's going to have to play right away just based on what they have currently.
This stuff never goes as you think it will.
Cooper DeJean.
He's still there.
Draft coverage, ESPN Wisconsin. I'm Gabe Neitzel along with Alex Strouf and Josh Dimaggio as we get ready for the next two rounds of NFL draft coverage. Alex, you were all out at the Q Club of Wisconsin and Waukesha last night. Let's just start with your guys' initial reaction to the Packers' first-round pick last night.
Yeah, Gabe.
I heard you were disappointed.
Disappointed strong. That's strong.
Tell the truth.
Joshy?
Tell the truth.
Joshy? We don't need to get off on the wrong foot here, man. We've been live for, 40 seconds?
I'm going to be on your ass all 2 hours that you stay here.
90 minutes, get it right. That's been chopped down to 90 minutes because of you. Yeah, I mean, initially the thought was Cooper DeJean and Graham Barton are sitting right there. And those are 2 guys, obviously, I don't think I'm alone, I fell in love with during this draft ramp-up. I didn't do a ton of research on the guy they ultimately picked. But after sleeping on it, after talking to people much smarter than me, like Josh Dimaggio to my left, offensive line depth is a good thing, Gabe.
Always has been.
Always has been, always will be. And the way Brad Nortman put it today on Kyle Bruston Nortman, the Packers are protecting their most valuable asset. And how can I be angry about that? But it does worry me. We just moved off a left tackle who had ACL troubles.
Yeah.
And now they bring in a left tackle with ACL troubles.
Well, he's had an ACL injury.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say
played full complement of snaps.
And it was all conference, I understand. And the Pac-12 plays no defense, though.
He doesn't, it's not lingering. It's not an issue anymore. It's the same thing with Elton Jenkins, who is arguably their best offensive lineman, also had an ACL injury, was able to come back. Like, I understand the trepidation when it comes to ACLs now because of the David Bakhtiari.
Got the yips.
Because of the David Bakhtiari situation. I get it. But additionally, like the Packers' offensive line history is riddled with guys who have ACL injuries and have been able to come back. One of the people that is going to be making the selection, famously, 100%. Twice, tore his ACL in Brian Bulaga. Mark Tauscher. Apparently, we love our offensive tackles who have ACL injuries here at Good Karma Brands, but also had an ACL injury, was able to come back. I get the trepidation, but at the same time, like, this is what they needed. Mm-hmm. They need offensive line depth. And when you look at what they truly need defensively is a second safety, a third starting linebacker who's going to be on the field 20 to 25% of the time, so not that big of a need. And additionally, there was no real linebacker with a first-round grade. Right, like, so no. I understand. Offensive line is not sexy, never has been, never will be, because we don't know how to break it down as regular NFL fans. That doesn't mean it's not necessary.
Right. The story of the offensive line is the less you hear a guy's name, the better in the NFL. Now, the Packers have put together offensive lines for a long time. There's a lot of things about Jordan Morgan. He was mocked to the Packers early in the process. On draft day, he had an over-under draft position of 31.5. And if you wanted the under, you had to it was negative odds. So you had to put some juice on it to get that option, which tells us that not only was he actually a first-round pick, which you saw a lot of people saying the whole reach thing. You can put that to bed because there have now been, I think, 3, maybe 4 teams who have said, we were interested in Jordan Morgan at the end of the first round. The important thing to me is Jordan Morgan fits kind of exactly what the Packers are looking for. He fits the thresholds. He's another guy with short arms.
That's personal.
Well, Brian Bulaga did it pretty well. Joe Thomas did it pretty well. All guys that the critique was short arms. Bill Belichick said, this guy's a left tackle. He left nothing to it. Goody came out and said this guy plays 4 positions. Like Brad said when he got into his nerdy CPA talk and protecting your assets, when you are planning to pay Jordan Love $50 million, protecting him is really damn important. And investing in guys that have rare traits and rare abilities, like Jordan Morgan has, doesn't happen in the later rounds. You've heard so many people say, the Packers are good at drafting offensive linemen. Why don't you take one in the 4th? Because the guys in the 4th aren't the same as the guys in the 1st. They're not the same size. They're not the same speed. They're not the same ability. When you watch Jordan Morgan, you go back and look at it, he crushed the Senior Bowl. That should have been a sign to every Packers fan. When the guy who dominated the Senior Bowl at the offensive line position is on the board, the Packers love those guys. That's always a huge thing. The other thing is, against the best competition, Jordan Morgan showed up. Leatu Latu, the first defensive player taken off the board, he dominated him all game. Those are all signs that should get you excited. Now, a pancake block isn't as sexy as a pick 6 for Cooper DeJean. It's not as sexy as a touchdown scored by any of the name the offensive position player or even an interception. But when you have Jordan Love, when you have needs across that offensive line where we feel good about Rasheed Walker, I feel a lot better if he's a premium swing tackle. We feel all right about Sean Ryan, but hey, if Jordan Morgan's better and he plays there, I'm happy about that too. If that move means Zach Tom moves down eventually, that's great. All of these things are just improving the team and improving an offense where we feel great about the skill position, and now let's knock out the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you heard Brian Gutekunst say it last night. Best 5. We want our best 5 offensive linemen out there. And because of the versatility, which again, another trait, just beloved by Green Bay Packers general managers, doesn't matter who's in charge. Oh, you played left tackle in college? We think you can play everywhere? Come on down. Yep. You are going to be our guy. That's just one of the other traits and assets that the Packers look for. So we are quickly approaching pick number 41, which is where the Packers reside. 4 picks in already into the 2nd round. Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State, ends up going to Buffalo. I really like Keon Coleman.
I was hoping maybe he'd be there at 41. I know the Packers probably won't go receiver this early. But if they did for a guy like Keon Coleman, I'm just saying. Anyway, I thought he could potentially be a 1st-round grade. Everybody was down on him in his 40 time, and then when he ran, the gauntlet time, he was the fastest in the gauntlet. He has functional speed, and another wide receiver just went, we'll get you to that.
You know who also had the best functional speed or game speed, they would say in that gauntlet? A guy named Puka Nacua. Pretty good. Pretty good asset.
Worked out all right in his rookie year, yeah.
Nakua, trying to... Oh, that kid from the Rams. I think he had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah, it worked out all right.
Ladd McConkey went 34 to the Chargers. So a couple of wide receivers and a defensive tackle out of Clemson. Does anybody want to take a shot at the last name here?
Orohoro.
Orohoro? Orohoro? Hey, Josh, you're an Orohoro.
Defensive tackle out of Clemson. A lot of H's, O's, and R's in that last name.
What did you compare to? Oconomowoc?
Oconomowoc, yeah. Like it's like every other letter's an O once you start getting rolling there. Johnny Newton, the defensive tackle out of Iowa, then goes right after him to Washington. And Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington, just went to the New England Patriots.
Which means who is still on the board, fellas?
Koopaloop.
Koopaloop.
I did find available. Phonetic spelling. Was I close? It's Oro. Are you
doing a Scooby-Doo impression?
I don't.
It's O-R-O-H 3 times in a row. So it's O-R-O-H 3 times in a row.
Oro.
Okay.
I feel like we sound like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Fortunately, I guess he's playing in the conference, so maybe we have to know that name eventually. He's not in the division. We don't have to worry about it right now. I think we can move off of the defensive tackle out of Clemson. And that's the kind of talk you're going to get to here tonight when we're digital only for ESPN Wisconsin Draft Nights, again, here on YouTube and on Twitter. So the Titans now on the board, 6th pick in the 2nd round, 38th overall. Cooper DeJean, as you guys mentioned, still on the board. And it makes me wonder. So I thought he was going to go in the 1st round after his pro day. Looked like the athleticism, everything was popping off the charts. And it's starting to remind me of, and people aren't going to really like this.
I know where this is going.
There was a defensive back out of Iowa who was mocked a couple of seasons ago very heavily to the Green Bay Packers in the first round, and then he fell to them in the second round. And the Packers ended up scooping up in round 2. Again, it's not going to be. It's not a great parallel.
Don't even say his name. He doesn't deserve it.
No.
No. What did he do for me?
Say it.
I mean, he had like an interception or two.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
He got our hopes high.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Josh Jackson.
Did he have an interception or two? Are we positive on
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay.
I can guarantee you it wasn't more. It wasn't more than that. It was an interception or two. That's all it was.
He stunk. I mean, there's no way to beat around that bush. He stunk.
No, but he had. I mean, you remember the game he had against Ohio State that year? His last year at Iowa.
He was terrific.
He had a pick 6 in that game. Everybody fell in love with him. Now, again, I think deJean and the athleticism and the traits that he has and the versatility he has would make me feel more excited, especially knowing what we know now about Jackson, retrospectively. But the Packers were rumored to want to trade up and potentially go get someone. I don't know if Johnny Newton would have been on that list, but of the list that people were trying to put together and try to figure out, okay, who would they move up for? Right now, Newton's the only one who has gone as we get closer and closer to the Packers pick at 41. So they may not need to move up in order to get one of these guys that they're looking at.
Yeah, thresholds are really important for the Green Bay Packers. Johnny Newton is one of those guys, but remaining on this list is Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper, Junior Colson, Braden Fisk, Chris Jenkins, Cooper Beebe, Jackson Powers Johnson. We've also got Kingsley Sumatia.
Nice.
Patrick Paul as well. So there's a ton of guys here. Max Melton.
Yeah.
Cole Melton's brother. There's a ton of guys, the Packers. I think at this point, they probably have 5 or 6 guys, and they're saying, shoot.
Yeah, but two
us.
guys you didn't name there, Joshy, are number 6 and number 7 best available on Mel Kiper Jr. board right now. Marshawn Nealon, the edge rusher out of Western Michigan, and Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker out of Texas A&M. Both guys that the Packers used the top 30 visit on. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 names to keep an eye on here. But obviously, Kool-Aid and Captain Morgan, I mean, that's a fun first couple of picks if they go Kool-Aid here at 41. But Koopa Loop, did you just call him, Joshy?
Yeah, you're making the same jokes as Homer. Is that a good or bad thing?
Homer stole that joke from me.
Oh, you guys worked together for a few hours last night. You start stealing each other's material, huh? Is that the way this works?
Apparently. It's crap. God, I get to Milwaukee for 3 days. My jokes are already be stolen by the GOAT.
Look, I don't know how big of a need is corner.
Corner's a need.
I don't think.
Do you trust Eric Stokes? Let me ask you. Right?
Well, but,
Do you
but
trust
it's
Eric
not.
Stokes?
But it's
and
not even about
based on availability. I'm saying based on ability. Do you trust Eric Stokes?
No.
Do you trust Valentine to be your number 2 corner?
I do.
As a number 2?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way he stepped up last year. Like, do I think he's a future, Packers Hall of Famer? Probably not. But I think
That's not a very high bar, though, Gabe.
Packers Hall of Fame?
It's not that high of a bar, is it?
There's a lot of people here who are going to take umbrage with that statement.
I mean, you've just got to be a long-term starter. That's what that means.
Yeah. Guess what I would take at that position?
For a long time?
Is Jair Alexander a Packers Hall of Famer?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. At the end of the day.
He was an All-Pro. What the hell are you on about?
What do you think?
What were we talking about? Carrington Valentine?
Yeah.
I got distracted.
Like, if he ends up being a long-term starter, if Valentine...
You trust him as the number 2 corner next year?
I do. I like his competitiveness. I like his athleticism. I think he has shown me as one of those guys that can really step up. I really think that he is a very good option at number 2 right now. Like, I feel better about him than I did going into year 2 Eric Stokes.
So what does that tell you about where the cornerback position is, though? Right? You spend this first-round capital on a guy like Stokes, and now you have a 7th rounder. Are you just lucky? Or is that desperation?
Of course.
I mean, obviously, he's thrown into that spot out of desperation a year ago, but he stepped up and played well. I agree with you. But if they went, let's say, Kool-Aid here.
Yeah.
Who's more of a corner, where Cooper you would view probably more of a safety, at least immediately. I would take Kool-Aid over Carrington Valentine tomorrow.
I don't think Gabe or myself would be upset if they added to that position, because more good football players is good for everyone on the field.
Yeah.
Of course.
Goody's stressed. multiple times how he believes competition is good for any room. He obviously believes that about the wide receiver room. He obviously believes that about the tight end room.
Mm-hmm.
So applying that to, I mean, you could apply it to the edge with they seem to be in a good spot. They've got two guys that are young-ish, and they've got Preston Smith, but Nealand here wouldn't be crazy. And adding Kool-Aid or Cooper DeJean to that room, I think, makes sense. You're taking good players and you're trying to make your team as good as possible.
Yeah.
I don't think the Packers are concerned about that second safety position and that other linebacker as much as the people are. We see a hole on the depth chart and we're worried about it, but I think they look around and go, well, Keyshawn Nixon's going to be on the field a whole ton. Eric Stokes is going to be on the field a whole ton. Carrington Valentine's going to be on the field a whole ton. So they're like, find a guy.
Honestly, the one place I'm most worried about defensively is probably interior line.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that is a need, especially it's been talked about a lot now this week between Rob Domofsky, Jason Wilde. Like we don't know if Kenny Clark's going to be here next year.
Correct.
Like Kenny Clark, everybody thought, oh, Packers can open up cap space. They just give Kenny Clark an extension, and they haven't done that. Presumably, you would do that. When free agency opened, so you had the money to spend. They haven't done that.
No.
I'm assuming at this point, he's not getting that extension.
Talks have stalled, for sure.
He's not, but I am operating under the assumption that he will not be here next year. So, Carl Brooks, I mean, he was great last year. Yeah, I like what he did, but I need more depth there. I need more depth on the defensive tackle front.
Where are you at on Devontae Wyatt? We're through 2 years. And it seems like he's done a decent enough job with the minimum opportunities, obviously more last year than his rookie year. But I'm not watching him and being like, wow, that's a star in the making, where Carl Brooks had some flashes last year. And I was like, ooh.
Again, he's got a year, but I am operating, unless Devontae Wyatt does something ridiculous this year, I am operating on the assumption that they will not pick up his fifth-year option. Like right now, 2 years in, I don't think he's tracking towards somebody that you're looking at picking up that fifth-year option. I'd say the same thing about Quay Walker.
Yep.
But I think Quay's athleticism gives you hope that in a new defense, he can turn things around in year 3. But has Wyatt, again, and it can be tough sometimes with defensive fronts, because even the big guy, even Chewy, who Josh and I hang out with every morning, Jen, Gabe, and Chewy on ESPN Milwaukee, like he can get critical of Kenny Clark at times, even though like Kenny Clark's eating double teams and all that. So even somebody who plays football will be critical of that guy who's just eating everything up. So I would like to see more defensive tackle depth, and here we are. All we've seen go off the board in the first 6 picks are defensive tackles and wide receivers in the second round.
And for the second night in a row,
Braden Fiske from Florida State just went to the Rams.
For the second night in a row, the Packers just got leapfrogged. The Eagles just traded into pick 40 with division rival Commanders.
Yeah, and the Packers.
On Twitter.
Yep. So the Packers are sitting here on deck. They're not making a trade. We know they're going to pick at 41 unless they trade out of that and go back.
Yeah, I mean, that leaves still a lot of guys who all fit the Packers threshold board that I pulled up here. A couple have gone off the board for them, but I think the Packers are pretty happy with the way this top half of the first round shaken out.
Eagles took Mitchell in round 1. Eagles now on the clock. The pick is in. It seems like they'll have a second crack to me at Cooper DeJean.
They're going to pass on him again.
Will you be mad?
No. I trust Goody. I mean, I know.
You didn't trust him last night?
It's not that I didn't trust him.
You compared him to Derek Sherrod.
That's not what I said. I didn't say he's a lot like Derek Sherrod. It just felt like a not-so-sexy pick to me.
When someone says it feels more Derek Sherrod than Brian Bulaga, how do you take that, Gabe?
I compared the almighty Packers Hall of Fame to a guy that played 3 years.
What is your issue with the Packers Hall of Fame? I feel like we need to explore this more. Did you not go enough as a kid?
I've only been once. I haven't been since it's been renovated. So maybe
did you not have the opportunity on the football as a kid to put your hand on the football where they have like the handprint of Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre? Like, oh man, their hands are so big. Like, I don't understand your issue with the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame.
I sat at Vince Lombardi's desk.
Oh yeah, they've got that in there too.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
So what the hell did you do?
Yeah, what's
I think it's Homer's fault.
Whoa!
So here's why.
Again, they worked together one night.
Yeah. Well, no, this is. I would have said this even if we had not worked together last night. Remember when Jordan Love took over last year, and what he kept saying was, "Jordan Love will be a Packers Hall of Famer."
Yeah.
It was at that moment when I heard him say that for the first time that I decided I don't give a damn about the Packers Hall of Fame. I care about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I want to win Super Bowls.
You haven't been around Homer enough. Homer just wants to be the first. So when he said...
Homer once called Jake Ryan a future... I think what scared Homer, he once called Jake Ryan a future Hall of Famer. All right? Got way out over his skis there. So now, so now when he sees somebody he likes, he's going to launch softer and set the bar lower so he can clear it.
I got bad news.
I got the same news.
Cooper's gone?
Cooper's gone to the Eagles.
DeJean goes forward.
So they go defensive back.
Not only will Jordan Love be throwing against Quinyon Mitchell in Week 1 in Brazil, he will also be throwing against Cooper DeJean Week 1 in Brazil.
So Kool-Aid?
I think this is Neyland, Kool-Aid, or one of these offensive linemen still sticking around. Back-to-back offensive linemen wouldn't shock me in this situation.
You don't think this is an Edgerrin Cooper spot?
I can't rule it out. Maybe they want, because in this situation, you would view Edgerrin Cooper as the second best, and they would be kicking McDuffie down.
Yeah.
So he would become more of a role player, playing 50% roughly.
I want somebody here, yes, who's going to be playing more than 20% of the snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
It's Cooper?
Well, it is Cooper. Packers just traded the pick.
Oh.
New Orleans Saints are on the clock.
Oh, okay.
Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network.
All right, sure enough. Whenever we see whatever the Packers got for trading back, we will certainly pass that along for you here on ESPN Wisconsin's Draft Night. So Cooper DeJean off the board.
So
he is going to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Does that tell you the Packers maybe wanted Cooper? If they're trading out of 41, or maybe that was always their plan.
That would be interesting. I mean, it's way too early to rule that out as a potential.
So they're going back. I'm assuming the Packers are going back to 45.
That's probably a good guess. I'm looking into it. I'll get you what I can.
Because that's where New Orleans was at 45.
Yep. Packers get pick 45, 168, and 190 in exchange for pick 41. The Packers are now up to 13 picks on the weekend.
Well, all right. Now we've reached. We've reached the total where Goody wanted to be.
The threshold.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they wanted Cooper. Also, again, it means one of two things.
Yeah.
Well, it could be one of. It's only one of two things. One, yes, they wanted Cooper DeJean. Somebody traded in front of them and took him, or they're comfortable with the way their board lays and goes, yeah, we're going to still get somebody we really like by going back.
Yeah, and an additional 2 picks.
Yeah, because in this spot, the Packers have enough ammunition to move up. So if Cooper DeJean was that valuable to them, they can throw in a fourth to go up a couple spots. It's not unprecedented for teams to jump literally just one spot in the draft or 2 spots. So to me, if Goody wants Cooper DeJean, he had the 8 previous picks to go do it. And what is he holding? The 13 pick thing we just talked about, but go up and move up 2 spots and trade a 5th round pick to get there. At this point, if it's that important to them, that's how I would view it.
There were a number of trades that have now happened here in the second round. Right. So it's not like there were unwilling trade partners. Right. If everybody just made their picks, like, well, okay, I guess everybody was kind of locked into the guy they wanted to take. That has not been the case so far here in the second round. Trades have been happening fast. Trades have been happening furiously.
So much for your subterfuge, Joshy. He really wanted 13 picks.
Yeah, he did. I didn't think that was subterfuge. I thought maybe some of the other stuff, talking about Cooper DeJean, that
was certainly subterfuge.
He was asked,
is that how you say it? Subterfuge?
Subterfuge.
Turfuge.
Got it. Turfuge.
I learned so much when I work with you guys.
Spell it.
Oh, boy. SUB. TUR.
Hey.
FUGE.
Yeah, that's right. I believe it's
E instead of the U.
E.
Yes. The only reason I know that is because I feel like I've sent the word subterfuge as a joke to so many friend group chats. Oh, since Goody had mentioned that word earlier this week.
Deceit used in order to achieve one's goal.
Okay. Nice, dude. What was your word you got eliminated in your elementary school spelling bee with?
I don't remember it, going to be honest.
Gabriel?
No idea.
You guys suck. Denominator.
No, I mean, or we're just not nerds.
Well, It's a fitting word for me.
I remember, for a quick aside here, I remember as a youth being far in the geography bee and realizing that if I advanced, I would have to go in front of the whole school and thinking, yeah, maybe I should just get this one wrong.
Geography bee being what? What kind of question do they ask you? Do they just give you the outline of a country and you say, hey, that's Thailand?
I believe that is portions of it, but a lot of it is word questions about which is this place and where is it located, or what is located next to blank, 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 or which country is surrounded by 3 sides of water in Africa.
What's the answer?
I mean, that one I was thinking of South Africa.
I got nothing here. Geography is not my jam.
Apparently, neither is spelling.
Hey, I took 3rd place.
What
but
is
the
your
nominator
jam?
got me out. Sports. That's about all I got, dude. I like to drink.
Hell yeah, brother.
Again, so the Packers have traded back. They now have the 45th overall pick. It's the 13th pick in the second round as they've traded out with the New Orleans Saints, who has already locked their pick in. Again, the way things happen here on night 2 of the NFL draft, things happening fast, things happening furiously. For the Green Bay Packers, for across the NFL, as we anxiously await Brian Bulaga's announcement of who that pick is going to be. And now Bulaga is going to have to wait in that green room just a little bit
that
longer.
Poor guy.
We didn't get the Cooper DeJean Ottawa.
I mean, it would have been nice.
I didn't think we were getting it.
I didn't either.
After they passed on him last night, there was no way they were picking him, even if he was there 41. I still feel like this is the Edgerrin Cooper play. They're going linebacker here.
Again, the thing about linebacker is no general manager in my time of being a Packers fan has really ever valued the position.
A.J. Hawk got selected 5th overall.
He did.
Yeah.
Nick Barnett was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
The NFL's changed. Quay Walker, also first round.
Quay Walker, a first-round pick.
Yeah, they don't value it, though.
Yeah, I mean,
that I don't necessarily disagree with.
Was
but
UDFA.
Okay, I just want to read you the depth chart on ESPN.com if you don't mind, Gabriel.
Hit me.
Quay Walker.
Cool.
Isaiah McDuffie.
They like him.
Pretty good.
Tell me if you know who this third starter is. Aaron Mosby?
Oh, would they go Mosby or would they go Wilson? Then?
They would go Wilson, but it's listed as Mosby.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Who the hell is Aaron Mosby?
You're getting
and
bad
he spells
info.
Aaron wrong. It's Arron.
Well, I mean, maybe that's how he spells it.
Well, it's incorrect. Christian Young, you know who that is?
What do you know? You took 3rd place in your spelling bee.
Fair
Yeah,
point.
you don't know crap about
You know
crap.
who Christian Young is?
Christian Young?
That's what I said, yes.
No.
I know who Christian Welch is.
Great. Christian Welch is listed behind
Familiar with
Eric
Christian
Wilson as the
Yelich?
3rd middle linebacker, according to ESPN.com.
What other Christians am I
Keyshawn
familiar with?
Banks, you know who that is?
No, we love ESPN here, but our lads is where you go for depth charts.
Great. Okay. They have 7 linebackers under contract. You both just said they don't know 3 of them.
Kool-Aid McKinstry, the pick at 41 for the New Orleans Saints.
Well, you're wasting time talking about Christian Welch and all these guys. We got picks coming off the board here.
Well, I'm telling you why linebackers should be valued. Yeah. They have 7 under contract.
If you don't know ball.
You just said you don't know what 3 of them are. No wonder I'm leaving at 8 o'clock. It's going to be 7:45 real quick.
He's just trimming minutes off of when he's just throwing up the deuces.
I get Gabe golfed 100 holes yesterday.
Hey, the Bucks are winning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Excuse me?
Yeah, they're up 3. They've been up for 5 minutes.
Okay, quick disclaimer here. Like, I am just so in on the Bucks and the playoff run and have been fighting like hell with seemingly everybody else. No, because I would just pay attention to the game. So I had it up on the one TV I can see in the Gruber offices, one called That's All Studios, and the one TV, the Bucks game was on there. And I looked at Josh and went, you know what? I'm going to be professional because otherwise that's all I'm going to be able to focus on instead of the task at hand.
Appreciate you.
But the Bucks are winning now, huh? Okay, it's a commercial. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have to pay attention to that.
Clear.
But again, like, I think you can grab one of these other linebackers still later and probably get something of more need. And again, so kind of off of the cornerback conversation where you're like, oh, if we got Kool-Aid McKinstry, like, would he be better? I have liked, and I know, Josh, you have told me that there are some character issues with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Adonai Mitchell. Liked what he did this year at Texas. Do I think that Adonai Mitchell is better than Romeo Doubs? Probably. I think and it gives you a backup plan of somebody with speed should Christian Watson continue to have hamstring issues. I don't think they're going wide receiver here, but I kind of feel the same way about cornerback as another one just went. Kamari Lassiter from Georgia just goes off the board to the Houston Texans. So we're getting closer. The Packers now in the hole for their pick at 45 after trading out of 41. So I kind of feel like certainly the talent at wide receiver is better than what they have at cornerback. They've proven themselves a little bit more. But at the same time, that's how I kind of feel about corner. Like, if they added one, yeah, you could talk me into it. But I think you could do that at wide receiver, too. Where, especially if it's somebody with speed, and then you have okay, now we've got a couple of guys that can really stretch and take the top off that defense, and we don't have to be incredibly reliant on Christian Watson being the only guy that we have on the roster of that.
I fully agree with you. I mean, Xavier Worthy was a name Rob Domofsky was floating all week.
Yeah, which again, that dude ran a 4.21. So
correct. I mean, that's absurd.
There's Christian Watson
him
fast.
Going to the Chiefs, by the way, that's unfair.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's completely unfair.
It's not great for everybody else.
You can't just add a Tyreek Hill 2.0 to the back-to-back Super Bowl champion.
The thing about Tyreek Hill is he weighs like 40 pounds more than him, and people underrate how density is important. Xavier Worthy is 0 percentile in terms of wide receiver weight.
Density is important.
Density is important because
Tyreek's a tank.
Yes, he's huge. For sure. People think because he runs so fast, they think he's a tiny guy similar to Xavier Worthy.
Because he's short.
The other guys you should be comparing Xavier Worthy to are like Tutu Atwell. That's the type of guy. Like a Dante Pettis. Those guys who are extremely thin. Like, there's situations where...
I mean, they're probably hoping he's more Braden Cooks.
Yes. But he was also, I believe, about 25 pounds heavier than him. There are going to be safety tackling Xavier Worthy that are 40 to 50 pounds heavier than him in the NFL.
Seems significant.
Great. 4.21 speed is wonderful.
I was going to say, it's great if you can outrun him.
It's great. Just hope you don't get tackled and go down as soon as you get the ball. That's...
It worked for Randy Moss.
It did.
I mean, there are so many times where Randy Moss just looked around, saw a couple defensive backs, and just, all right, this is good.
Take a lay.
It just dives down.
There's a few guys who do that now still.
Oh, yeah.
Like Tank Dell was pretty smart about it. He saw contact and said, no, thanks. It works. It does. And it worked recently with Tank Dell, who's also a fair comparison to him, but I'm worried about that type of guy staying healthy. I wouldn't have liked him on the Packers. I wouldn't have liked the amount of investment and adding injury to a room that has one other big looming injury.
I wouldn't have taken him at 25. If he would have been sitting there at 41, I'm gobbling up 4.21 speed every day of the week. But obviously, that was only going to slide so far.
Correct.
That type of speed was only going to slide so far in the NFL draft.
It is good to know that the Las Vegas Raiders have learned. And they didn't go with another just extremely fast guy. The last one was an abject disaster, and I believe he's now in prison. But before that, there was a lot of fast guys that were just never any good.
Darius Hayward Bay.
Yes.
Oh, Darius Hayward Bay. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, I think the Packers could use a little bit more speed offensively. I think they do eventually take a wide receiver. I don't think it's going to be today. I don't think we're going to be sitting here throughout the course of our draft night coverage and talking about a wide receiver they take. Again, I feel like I could talk myself into it rather quickly, though. If it's the right guy.
Yeah, I could too. Totally.
Another interesting name is going to be coming off the board here to the Cardinals, which is a guy I mentioned, Max Melton. He fit.
Is that actually Bo's brother, or was that a joke?
That is actually his
100%
brother.
his younger brother.
I went out with that with a head of steam on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, and then I realized I don't know if I've actually looked this up. I think I probably read a tweet, and Gabe confirmed it after that.
Well, hopefully Gabe didn't read the same tweet.
Joshy did a cannonball. Came up and went, wait, I'm not sure.
I need my floaties. Gabe, help me out.
That's why we're a good team in the morning. We back each other. Somebody goes hard to the hole. We're there to grab the offensive rebound tip back. That's what we're there for.
They're learning that.
What's the score over there?
I don't know. I turned around. I used the basketball analogy, and then I turned around to see the score, and it's a commercial, so I don't know. So now on the clock is the Arizona Cardinals. The pick is in for them. So Cardinals, Raiders, and then the Packers are up for their presumably actual first pick of the evening after trading out of 41.
So Max Melton goes to Arizona, right? That's what you said? Okay, yeah. So presumably Vegas knows who they're taking or they're going to trade.
Mm-hmm.
Packers will pick at 45, we think?
I got to imagine.
Yeah.
I
think at some point you just
I
gotta start
really
adding
thought
talent.
he was screwing with us when he said he wants 13 or 14 picks. How many roster spots does he have, right? Like, there was only one draft casualty last year in Lou Nichols, RIP, but he's not dead. He just got cut. But
thanks for the clarification.
Just saying. So I imagine there's going to be many more draft picks having to be cut this year.
Sure.
If he drafts 13 guys.
But he has no problem with that.
Yeah, he's pretty loyal to his draft picks, Gabe.
Yeah, but he's got other guys who are draft picks on his roster.
I guess
He's loyal to all of his draft picks.
Chicken or the egg type situation.
Yeah. Look, when it comes to Goody, the one thing I know is the dude loves his draft picks.
He does.
Doesn't want us part with him. So when he said he wanted, look, I went, really? When I heard the clip from Monday, I want 13 or 14 picks.
Yeah, I thought that was a smokescreen.
No. Goody does not love. The one thing Goody will never lie about is his love of draft picks and how he always wants more. He's never going to lie. Hopefully you've learned your lesson now. Now you know that if Goody says he wants 16 draft picks, he might find a way to get 16 draft picks.
Did you just old man me?
What do you mean?
Hopefully you learned your lesson?
Yeah, kid.
All right, 7:30. I know who the Raiders are picking.
Who are the Raiders picking?
Jackson Powers Johnson.
Okay. That's a guy also fit the threshold.
Yeah, totally.
Don't know if the Packers are interested in investing at that position or if they want Elton Jenkins to play there.
I would like them to invest in that position. Although,
oh boy,
I'd be okay with Tom. What are you all boy?
It's 106-106.
This is a tied basketball game.
And the Packers are about to make a selection in the NFL draft.
Yeah, you guys may have to take this one yourselves. I'm gonna sit out the next 56.
Do what you got to do, Gabriel. Do what you got to do. So. I don't know how I'm going to pay attention. The guy with the most ADHD in this room taking the lead seems like the best idea we have. So,
Mr. Free Throw.
Jackson Powers Johnson goes.
We're focused.
Center, Oregon.
I'm aware. Thank you for spelling it out for anybody that might not know that.
I was doing your job.
Be my guest. 7:15.
It's only 7:07. You got to grind here. You got 53 more minutes left.
Again, another lesson that you probably should have learned from when we did the sidecasts together during Packers playoffs.
Yeah, I do remember.
Is once Josh knows he can get to you, guess what's not happening? Josh, stop it.
He is the best in the biz.
He just is not stopping.
Now, Ben Brust is the best in the biz at accidentally prodding.
Sure, yes.
But Joshy is amazing at just pissing you off.
Oh,
but
he's fully aware. Yeah.
Yeah. If I thought you were getting mad, I'd probably stop. Real life mad, but I'm going to push it to see if I can find the line.
Yeah, I don't get real life mad real often, pal. We're watching a Bucs game and watching the Packers pick in the NFL draft. There's not much to be mad about, unless they draft another offensive lineman I did not do any research on. And I'll call him Derek Sherrod.
I've got the Packers pick.
Okay, without spoiling, give me a position.
Well, if I give you the position, it spoils it.
You're going to know it because it's either linebacker or edge.
Correct.
So it's
I right?
It's Nealand or Cooper, right? Or it could be Junior Colson.
According to Albert Breer, Green Bay was rumored to be considering this player in the first round as a potential surprise. They got their tackle need filled there and now get this position need addressed.
I was right. It's Edgerrin Cooper, right?
It is Edgerrin
Nailed
Cooper.
that.
Wow, they were considering him in the first round, according to Albert Breer.
That doesn't shock me. Measurables are great. RAS scores solid. It's a guy they brought in on that top 30 visit, and I mentioned it last night on the show, but 4 guys from last year they drafted who they hosted on a top 30 visit. That's Dontavian Wicks, Sean Clifford, Carl Brooks, and R.I.P. Lou Nichols. But I really like this pick, right? Like, we just had the conversation about whether or not this is a real position of need. We just ran through the depth chart. We don't know who 3 of their 7 linebackers are. Now, I understand it's a new defense where mainly 2 linebackers are on the field. But it's a
He's the second linebacker on the field. That's the plan.
Over McDuffie?
Yeah, absolutely. It might not be right away, but if you're investing pick 45 into a linebacker, Isaiah McDuffie, frankly, probably isn't taking that job.
17 tackles for loss last year for Edgerrin Cooper.
Does he have the green dot? Who has the green dot on the Packers defense?
I think keep it with Quay, right?
Keep it with Quay. Year 1?
What if you gave it to McKinney?
Maybe.
I just, again, I'd feel more comfortable with somebody else, I guess, and then Quay Walker at this point. Kind of being that guy.
Cooper, massive year last year.
Just to kind of give an overall thought on Edgerrin Cooper, he was a threshold guy. His RAS was 9.10. He is 252 out of 2,800 linebackers ever, dating back to 1987. Ran a 4.51 40.
Wow, Brian Bulaga with a dark green sport coat as he's making the Packers selection.
There is one thing I saw about Edgerrin Cooper that did cause me a little concern, and that was just a couple weeks ago, there was a missed tackle percentage of the inside linebackers.
Uh-oh.
The third worst guy, there's Jeremiah Trotter, is the worst at 22.1 percentage, Cedric Gray 19.1, and then Edgerrin Cooper at 15.9.
I don't know why you're concerned about that. He'll fit right in.
Yeah, true that.
He's going to fit right in.
I thought we were trying to fix that problem.
Oh, we were fixing that problem. I thought we were trying to get people to be comfortable.
If you heard Jeff Halfley,
be yourself,
just
man.
gotta play with energy. Just gotta play with energy. That'll solve all the problems, according to Jeff Halfley. Look, I like this pick. I mean, as you just alluded to, Gabe, from Albert Breer, he was a guy with a first round, maybe late first, early second round evaluation. You get him at pick 45. The Packers obviously shocked the world last night with their pick for a guy that was a similar evaluation. So I like this Cooper pick.
I believe, if things go right here, that we are being joined currently by Jason Wilde. I don't know if Hunter, back doing all the producing there, is going to be able to get him on the air as fast as I'm repeating that. But I do see Jason has joined. And I see.
I see.
I see
okay.
a Jason. I see a Jason.
Looks like he is live from his office, not from his home. Jason,
1265.
Welcome to ESPN Wisconsin Draft Nights, Night 2, rounds 2 and 3, here on YouTube and on, well, I guess we have to call it X officially.
Hi. Great to be here.
I don't know if Jason heard us. I'm looking right at Jason.
I heard you.
I
was
see him.
talking.
Oh, boy.
You don't hear me?
Okay, Jason can hear us.
For the Bucs.
I can't hear Jason.
Tonight. These teams.
Okay, I don't think we can hear Jason. This is going to be an issue.
I was told there is a delay, but I see Jason speaking, and I'm not hearing a word from Jason.
All right, I'm just going to spell out the technical issues we're having right now. So 100.5 ESPN Madison is where this is being run out of. They currently have the Bucs game up on their board, so we can't hear it because we are running through the board in Milwaukee. So we need the Bucs game to come off in Madison. We need Jason to come through in Madison. 3 and 4 are the buttons you're looking for back there in Madison. That's going to help us. Then we'll turn on RIP here, and we'll be able to hear Jason. That's how that's going to work.
Are you trying to produce?
I'm doing my best, Gabe.
Just remote producing from the Guru Lofts' One Call That's All Studios.
I'm gonna physically do it now, though. Hold on. I'll be back.
Okay.
Well, in the meantime, Jason, if you do hear us and you are told to come back on, just start talking to us when you get the opportunity, and hopefully we can hear you.
So, Edgerrin Cooper, if you go to the Beast, which is a great draft tool, the Beast, which is put out by Dane Brugler for The Athletic, just literally 324 pages of draft nerdyism, just to do whatever you want. Number 2. Linebacker coming off the board. Look, I mean, this is somebody I think that's been mocked. If you look to a lot of second-round mocks to the Packers at 41, so this ultimately ends up making sense for them. But again, I was wondering if this was going to be something that they were unsure of and ultimately were not going to invest in.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be too upset.
Chris Middleton's a man.
As the Bucs now tie up the game with 1.4 seconds left in the game total. He fits a lot of things. He's an athletic guy. Anytime you add athletes, I think that's important. I think it is also instructive that the Packers seem intent on adding to the middle of the defense, straight up the middle. We've gotten Xavier McKinney in the offseason. Mm-hmm. Now we have Edgerrin Cooper. I do think that could other people can hear Jason, but we just can't. So that's a good thing to add to that process as well. I do think that is clearly something that Jeff Halfley is interested in. Mm-hmm. It will see how far they take that, but If there was a weak part of the defense, it was running the ball, and it was right up the middle of the field. How many times did we watch guys run open in coverage? How many times did we watch a simple, what looked like to be a dive play, just go for 10, 12, 15 yards?
And this is especially something that I've thought of in the past, and typically has always been as a baseball guy, like a thought.
Yeah.
Strong. You want to be strong defensively up the middle. You know, your shortstop, second baseman, center fielder, catcher. You want to be strong up the middle of the field. And I've thought that for a while about NFL teams. I felt like it was really kind of brought home when you watched the best defenses play this year. And I'm talking about two in particular.
Yeah.
I'm talking about San Francisco, and I'm talking about Baltimore. Like, those are just two teams that have been forever seemingly strong up the middle. Like, those are the teams that really have been able to do great things defensively. And maybe the Packers are finally subscribing to that.
Yeah. What interests me is clearly there's been a philosophy change in Green Bay. And I don't know if that is brought on by watching San Francisco and what they do, or the Ravens, as you mentioned. But there's clearly a change where the middle linebacker or inside linebacker, whatever you want to call it, is now a priority. It's easy to look at Dre Greenlaw and to look at Fred Warner and go, yeah, we want that. That's not so easy to happen. Those are two all-pro level guys on the same team. I do think there's potential that the Packers have just decided this is a position we need, and if we want to stay in base more, or if we don't want to end up in dime packages, or we want to be more fluid, these are the type of guys that it's not ideal. He's not a corner, but when you have Quay and you have Edgerrin Cooper out there, they can cover a tight end, or they can not be Preston Smith on a wide receiver. I think that's kind of what we're being told right now.
Yes, 100%. Like, and we've seen it happen so many times where the Packers find themselves in some sort of sub position where, you know, that's what ends up happening, where you end up with a linebacker or different things on defense, and having that versatility at an inside linebacker spot, and feeling like, okay, obviously this isn't something that you want to happen on the regular.
Yeah.
But if you've got somebody athletic enough, and somebody, again, the Cooper missed tackles thing, as much as I joke, is certainly a concern. But I'm sure that the Packers, I mean, again, there are a lot of Packers that are going to be playing defense that had bad tackle rates a year ago. That's something that Jeff Hafley and his new coaching staff want to correct, are going to have to correct, and has to be something that they talk about right away.
I believe in that interview that Jeff Hafley did right before becoming the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, was him stressing like his way of tackling, which is a different way than is taught commonly. I mean, the Packers' defense is going to change a lot. We heard the effort thing, which you can attribute missed tackles to effort. How many times did we see Darnell Savage or Jair Alexander just throw a shoulder into a guy? I think we saw Quay do it a couple times where those tackles could have been made. They were in position to be made, and for whatever reason, they just failed to make those tackles. So there's the newfound investment. There's a newfound priority. It will be interesting to see how much Goody. Now, it's hard to compare it to Rich Bisaccia when he came here, but when Rich Bisaccia became a member of the Packers, they gave him some guys he wanted. They kind of catered to him in the style of special teams he wanted to run. Now we've seen Xavier McKinney get a massive contract, and the second pick in the draft for the Packers, which Goody said last night, this is an extremely important day for the Green Bay Packers. They've now gone and invested into that defense at the linebacker position.
Well, you talk about, I mean, again, the first round pick gets all of the love, but the second round is really where the Packers, under Gutekunst, have really made hay. I mean, I made the joke about Josh Jackson, which was his first draft.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was a miss. His second round pick in 2019 was Elton Jenkins. Second round pick in 2020, A.J. Dillon. And look, A.J. hasn't been the impact player clearly that they've wanted, and he's probably the second worst guy that they've taken in the second round. Still not bad. Josh Myers, even though we talk about him not being here next year, he's been a starter for so many games for the Packers. Christian Watson, obviously the second round pick in 2022. And then last year, Musgrave and Reed. Like the second round is where Goody has absolutely lived in terms of filling out this roster. So while the first round picks, obviously, because it's the first round, get a lot of the love, the second round picks have had a lot of impact and have had a lot of impact immediately for the Green Bay Packers.
Do we got it solved over there?
Not quite. No, not quite.
No. Okay, that's a good thing. Yeah. The second round pick is where you...
Just to update here, the first running back off the board, Panthers end up taking Jonathan Brooks out of Texas, who is kind of rated as the top running back.
Go get him, pal.
Across the board. And the Tyler Nubin, I guess, might technically be the first safety. Cooper DeJean is listed as a cornerback by many, could be a safety as well, though. But Nubin out of Minnesota just went 47th overall to the New York Giants. Again, Packers back for another pick in the second round at 58, so 11 picks away right now.
All right. What'd I miss?
So tell me more about why you would love this pick. Are you more excited about Edgerrin Cooper than you were last night with the Packers' first round pick?
Yeah, I am. And not necessarily. I mean, I think that where they were drafted matters too. Okay. Ultimately, once they're on the field, it won't, right? I mean, just play well, and I'm fine with you, right? But I think this is a position of more desperation at this point, right? This Edgerrin Cooper's a guy who's probably going to come in and be a day one starter, which you could probably make that case as well for Captain Morgan, but
I don't know where it's going to be. I feel like Jordan Morgan is going to have every opportunity to be the starter at left tackle, right tackle, or right guard.
I would imagine he probably has a really good opportunity to.
Yeah, because there are potentially 3 spots where he could be started.
But when we get done with the pick and you say to me, where's the green dot on defense? And you're already floating the idea that it could be their second round pick, that tells me everything I need to know. Is that this guy who wreaked havoc last year at Texas A&M, double-digit tackles for loss, almost double-digit sacks, several forced fumbles. Like, statistically, he has it. The size, he has it. The RAS, which I know Goody loves and subscribes to, which I do.
Well, because you
checks
have to.
all the boxes.
If you are a Packers fan, and look, maybe you're a casual fan, you don't have to care about relative athletic score, but if you are somebody like Josh, who just lives and breathes Packers draft, familiarize yourself with relative athletic score.
Yeah, relative athletic score is simply just a way for the Packers for people to realize, based on height, weight, and like their physical stature, how athletic those people actually are. So I'm sure the Packers aren't using relative athletic score because this was invented by a guy who figured there's a way to...
Oh, they're using it.
No, they definitely aren't. They have their own prior...
Excuse me?
You okay, Joshy?
I'm looking for the word. Oh, wait.
Hunter!
Hey!
So we did a little test here.
Let's see if this gets Jason
I think we
back.
figured out.
We're testing things out we've never done before.
Look at that. All it took was me to go save things.
Why are you staring at Strouf while you said that?
I see Jason. Is he there? And the word I was looking for was proprietary.
I hear Jason. Jason's here. What's up, Jason?
Green Bay. Hello.
You haven't heard me. I haven't said anything.
Hey, there's Jason.
Oh,
I hear Jason Wilde.
He can't hear us.
Oh, no, Jason can't hear us.
No, there's a delay.
No,
there's a delay.
I can hear you. There's an echo. There's a delay. There's people yelling out in the common area because the Bucs game is on. So
yeah.
I'm here. You guys are a finely tuned machine, just like Goody used an RAS score, but something proprietary that they call it, apparently.
Very nice. Jason, let's just start with Edgerrin Cooper. What do you make of the pick? Obviously, linebacker, a position of need for the green and gold.
Yeah, look, I've been listening to the entire segment that I'm supposed to be on, so I've really enjoyed your insights, the three of you. I would say this. I want to know why they traded back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was Edgerrin Cooper going to be the pick at 41, or when the Eagles went up into 40 and grabbed Cooper DeJean, did they then say, okay, we got a bunch of guys that are graded about the same, like they did last year when they traded back and settled for Jaden Reed at 50? Did they say, okay, that's the guy we wanted, he's gone. Now we move back and we'll take what's left when we get to go at 45. I don't know that. That'll be one of the first questions I ask Goody. But he said he would get 13, 14 picks. He's up to 13 now. Picked up 2 extras. I don't know enough about Edgerrin Cooper. I did not watch a lot of Texas A&M tape, but he plays a position of need, and he fits the suit.
A draft. Oh, are you still going? I can't see because I'm looking at the delay here. But a draft pick of Edgerrin Cooper, inside linebacker, tells us what about the Packers and their approach in 2024 and forward.
Well, it tells us that they have to figure out who 3 linebackers might be, right? They have to have depth of some sort. But as you know, Domofsky and I talked about earlier this week, like you figure that Quay Walker will be the will. You figure that, at least until tonight, that Isaiah McDuffie will be the Mike, and then we'll find somebody to play that 15 to 20% of the time at the Sam linebacker on the strong side. You know, how they decide to use Quay and use Edgerrin Cooper simultaneously, maybe that's what Isaiah McDuffie now, because they don't want quite as much as they would have been a 3-4. So, look, we have talked to Jeff Happ once. The closest I have come to talking to Jeff Happ since he was introduced was when he almost ran me over in the parking lot.
Are you okay, Jim?
Which was not, by the way, was not his fault. He was coming through. There was a bus there. I kind of peeked out from beyond the bus, and there was an SUV heading toward me. So it's not on him. It's on me.
So, Jason, who do we think is going to be wearing that in this conversation that we were having? Who do you think is wearing that green dot defensively for the Packers when we start up things in Brazil in 2024?
Gotta be Quay.
Devondre Campbell. No. Quay Walker wore it most of the year last year. I would think that would make sense. Now, again, I don't know enough about the way Jeff Hafley likes to do this. Should we be careful not to rule out Xavier McKinney wearing it?
Mm-hmm. That was my suggestion, Jason, because I think he's going to be on the field the most. Like when it comes to these 3 linebackers that they now have, I mean, they could be, again, if McDuffie ends up being the Mike linebacker in your traditional setup, like I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to rotate these guys kind of through the defense, just because I don't think that Goody, and I ran down his second round picks, I don't think Goody is looking to take somebody who's playing 15 to 20% of the snaps with the 45th overall pick, with a guy who he's got in his top 50 on his draft board.
Yeah, there's no way he is. He said that, right? Like he basically pointed out that guy's not going to play. Whoever, this is not 2005, 2006, when Brady Papingo was playing a snap as the Sam linebacker. They're just not going to do that. But going back to what you guys were talking about, where I was watching the show but couldn't contribute to it. They would love to have 2 linebackers that are flowing the ball and making plays. I heard you guys talk about tackle numbers or tackle numbers. That's certainly a valid concern. But, I think their whole idea, tried it with Campbell way in the 3-4, is to have 2 linebackers that really control the middle of the field, cover tight ends, who make tackles, who are really good against the run. And the idea here was that Quay Walker flourishes in a new system, and that Edgerrin comes in and makes plays right away. I'm not real happy with his name, because I already have to worry about
Edgerrin Cooper.
Well, I already worry about calling Rasheed Walker Rasheed Wallace, and now I'm worried about calling Edgerrin Cooper Edgerrin James.
Yeah.
Well, at least they got a Cooper. They got a Cooper in this draft.
I guarantee you, Jason, that Mark Chmura at some point will call him Edgerrin James.
I bet Mark Tauscher will as well.
No comments.
So I mean, That's exclusive company you could join if you accidentally call him Edgerrin James. I'm just saying you don't have to feel as bad.
Look, if we're talking about Edgerrin Cooper enough that we're saying his name frequently enough to mistakenly call him Edgerrin James, that will be a good sign because it means A, he's playing a lot,
good problem to have.
B, he's making a difference for them.
When is Goody talking tonight? Is it after everything's
end
done?
of the whole
After the second round?
Yep. So we've got a Zoom call with Edgerrin Cooper coming up here in about 5 minutes. So we'll see what he has to say, and then they're going to be back on the clock at 58. So.
All right. Well, if you've got that, Josh, you got one more.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think now that we've reached the 13 pick threshold, Goody is happy and is going to make at least 13 picks throughout the next 2 days?
I think there might be some packaging picks to move up tomorrow, but I don't think he'll be packaging his threes to go get another 2. I suppose that's possible. He is on board still, but again, there's such a great opportunity here to add to your football team. It's great that you got. Let me see if I can do the math now. 8 picks tomorrow, and there certainly we've talked all week about all good players, great players that have been the 4th through 7th round pick in the team's history. But if there's an opportunity, if there's a guy in the 4th round, you got to give up 2 fifths to go get him or whatever it ends up being. I think that he would not shy away from it, because no matter what he said, if you get 5 good guys out of these first 2 days, there is only so much room on your roster, even if you're trying to create competition. So they have to be a little bit careful about, bringing guys in. They also want to bring in undrafted free agents. So I'll be curious to see how the numbers.
Jason, we appreciate the time. We will talk to you later tonight. Go get ready for the Zoom call that you guys have with the newest member of the Green Bay Packers in Edgerrin Cooper of Texas A&M.
All right, I'll talk to you guys maybe. Pick number 58.
Jason Wilde joining us here on ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Wisconsin game night.
I'm very angry at Tyrese Halliburton.
So at the end of that session there with Jason, who provided us great insight, I looked over at Gabe, I looked over at Strouf, and then through my ears I could hear computer noises happening, and I realized I felt like a one-man army in that moment with Jason Wilde, because the Bucks are down to it. They are down 2 with less than 3 with less than 3 seconds left now.
They're down 3 with less than 2 seconds left.
1.6 left.
Yeah. So
after Chris Middleton just made a bank 3 to tie the game.
He made a 3 to send it to the first overtime, made a 3 to tie it, and we are going to step away just for a moment here, and we will, as we continue to get closer and closer to the Packers pick, we'll update you on everything else happening in the NFL Draft Round 2. So we're about halfway through Round 2. We've got Rounds 2 and 3 tonight for you, right here on ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night.
You're listening to Draft Night coverage on ESPN Wisconsin.
From the biggest plays on the court to the comments made in the locker room after, an in-depth recap of every Bucks game in 6 minutes. No more, no less. Bucks in 6 provides game recaps for every game. Hear the high-flying dunks from Giannis.
Puts it on the floor, spins down the lane, and plunges it through.
Or the deep threes from Dame.
Dame time has arrived with 107.
Bucks in 6 on the Bucks Plus Audio Network. Find it now on bucks.com/plus or on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.
All you have is one chance after an accident, one decision on who to call, one shot to get the help you need. Don't waste it on the one offer you get from your insurance company. Make the one call to Gruber Law Offices. It's the only one you'll need to make. Call us today. Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all.
Protect your dream home with American Family Insurance. And you can weather any storm. You'll also save up to 25% by bundling home, auto, and life. American Family Insurance. Get a quote. Find an agent at amfam.com.
products not available in every state. Discounts may not apply to all coverages on an auto or home policy. Discounts do not apply to life insurance policies. Visit amfam.com to learn how discounts may apply to you. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating companies, American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
You ever have one of those days when you just couldn't come up with the right answer? Well, I know one answer that pretty much solves all problems. Ice cream. Yeah, it's the answer to everything, right? And right now, at Quick Trip, our rich, creamy, straight from our dairy, Nature's Touch 1-gallon pails of ice cream are just $4.99. Yeah, now that's an answer worth digging into. Come on, be a problem solver. Bring home some fresh, delicious Nature's Touch ice cream, only from Quick Trip.
Good Karma Brands is proud to be an equal opportunity employer. Our policy is to provide equal opportunity employment, development, and advancement to all current and potential teammates. If you are an organization that maintains a job bank, provides employment information, or gives job referrals, you may request to be placed on the station's mailing list for future career opportunities. To learn more about careers at Good Karma Brands, please email careers@goodkarmabrands.com.
Woo! Hey, this is Ben Brust from Kyle Brust and Nortman on ESPN Wisconsin. People can't stop screaming about the Screamin' Sicilian frozen pizza, and no wonder. There's plenty to scream about, like the buttery stone-fired crust, secret recipe tomato sauce, mounds of whole milk mozzarella, and tons of premium toppings. Find Screamin' Sicilian in your local grocer's freezer and find out for yourself why Sport called Screamin' Sicilian's holy pepperoni frozen pizza the best of the best. Screamin' Sicilian, taste what all the screamin' is about.
Bandana? Check. Boots? Check. Gloves? Check. As a motorcycle rider in Wisconsin, you may go to great lengths to protect your image. Just be sure you're protecting yourself, too. Wear a Department of Transportation-approved helmet. Perform safety checks on your motorcycle. Know the traffic laws and don't take risks. Motorists and motorcyclists can work together to achieve zero preventable deaths on Wisconsin roads. Zero in Wisconsin. Together, we can save lives. Learn more at zeroinwisconsin.gov. Wisconsin DOT.
As you're putting your spring calendar together, we'd love to have you join us Saturday, May 18th for Mark Osiki's 6th annual Casting for Kids Fishing Tournament to support the American Family Children's Hospital, UW Carbone Cancer Center. We're on the Madison Chain of Lakes early, then back at the Alliant Energy Center for 2:30 happy hour, dinner, and live and silent auctions with cool autographed hockey items, guided tours, and a brand new fishing boat. There's even more on our website, castingforkids.org. Help us help the kids, castingforkids.org.
Hey, Gabe, do something. We're back.
No fancy little splash liners, no nothing like, little imaging.
Dude, just do your job.
Yeah, talk.
Jeez.
I'm mad at you.
It's so easy to get under Strouf's skin. I love it.
Incredibly easy.
Just an easy target.
Yeah, I'm an easy target. Yeah,
just an easy target.
No doubt.
But you've got to have tough skin.
I do have
on the
tough skin.
show. Obviously not.
Nice.
On the show that you are now producing. On
those guys are soft as hell. What are you talking about?
Well, but again, Brust is going to accidentally get under your skin.
Nah. Well, yeah. I mentioned that earlier, but it's more by him misusing his passion. He's just a lot.
I listen,
and the thing about Brust is he only gives a damn if it's about him, right? if it's beneficial to
it's a secret
Brust.
sauce to Scalzo and Brust when it works. So it being the same for KVN wouldn't be a shock.
If it's for Ben, he's passionate about it. He's never gonna let it go.
Secret sauce.
Not so secret.
Implies that people don't know how it works. I think, again.
I think, not to spoil anything, but I think there might be a couple people that are listening now going, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Greg and I brought it to the audience's attention quite often. I believe what you need to do, and I want your role if we can do a little talk there, and this is tough. When Ben says the wrong word, they kind of just let him say it. I believe he called geography, and they just rolled by, and it's like, well, wait a second.
Let's go ahead and update you on a couple of things. So you mentioned Jonathan Brooks, running back out of Texas, went. Tyler Nubin, the safety from Minnesota, went to New York. Since then, Mason Smith, LSU defensive tackle, goes to Jacksonville. Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle out of Michigan. There's been a lot of defensive tackles going here in the second round. He goes to Cincinnati. Michigan quarterback Mike Sandersill ends up going to Washington. Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia, to the Steelers. And then Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, the wide receiver, ends up going. I did. I really liked him. I liked his speed that he brought to the table. I thought he was just really productive for a Longhorn team that was pretty good this past season. He ends up going to Indianapolis. So Mitchell is somebody that I liked that is now off the board. Again, thought it was pretty unrealistic the Packers were going to take him, considering how deep the wide receiver room is for them. Are any of those picks guys that you were hoping that would fall to the Packers at 58?
Not necessarily, Gabe. You know, I think we're to the point in the draft, at least for me, who's not as hardcore as Josh here you are when we get to these middle rounds. It's more a positional thing for me now, right? I mean, obviously the big concern still is who's starting opposite Xavier McKinney at safety. But as we discussed earlier, I don't know that that's as big of a concern for the Packers within 1265 as it is for us in downtown Milwaukee.
Yeah, I thought Newbin.
Nice throat clear than the mic, dude.
I thought Newbin was an option. I'm going to move past you. I think we have Nick Bornheimer joining us now. Is that you, Nicky?
Fellas, can you hear me?
Gotcha, Nick.
Gotcha.
What's going on?
How are we feeling about Edgerrin Cooper pick that just came off the board there, Nicky?
Ecstatic. I didn't think he was going to be there at all. I'm getting an interesting feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, I say something and then I hear it back in my ear 6 seconds later.
Oh, that's
It
good.
makes it tough to concentrate.
I can see how that would be a problem.
If you got to bail on us, we completely understand if it makes it too hard to have the conversation. But what about Cooper did you like for the Packers pick?
I mean, oh, here we go. I think this is better. He's a dynamic, just like playmaker type who is like, I think he led the SEC in tackles for losses last year. Like just somebody who's going to get in the backfield. Like that's exciting. And while it was probably the right pick in the first round, excitement wise, it leaves a bit to be desired. So this is just like kind of like a flashy, like cool, helps in area of need defensive pick. So yeah, man, like, I don't know, our pass rush could be sick next year. Like we could be in the backfield in a pretty exciting way. So I think it's, I don't know. I'm excited about it.
Nick Bornheimer, one of the hosts of the Unpack podcast. Follow it at the Unpack Pod, joining us here on ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night.
I mean, I guess I got one. You just heard me talking about it, Nick. Right? What? What? What's the face?
I ask a question.
You and your hand
Gabe
up,
asked
and
a
then
question.
Gabe pointed at me.
I was holding the microphone.
Oh, you hold microphones in another way. Sorry, Nick. Now the feedback, we got idiots working together, all sorts of glorious things happening on ESPN.
You just,
Draft Night.
yeah, listen. Now everything is starting to come through a little more clearly. Well, what was the general consensus from you guys? Like, what did you feel? Because I just popped on late. I feel like the Slack channel I'm on with the APC group was pretty ecstatic about it too.
Yeah, I'm happy with the Cooper pick. I think it's a position of need, which I was just about to ask you about with safety, which they've ignored at least through the first two picks. But it's a guy that brought in for a top 30 visit. And I know Goody has done a nice job over the years of drafting at least a few of those guys in each of his classes, dating back to when he took over as general manager. When he uses those visits, he uses them to his advantage. It's a guy that, like you mentioned, he was one of the top guys in the SEC for tackles for loss, had a lot of sacks, close to double digits. He's a playmaker. He's speedy. He's athletic, and he's a good fit at a position of need. But I want to turn it to you on safety and defensive back, really, overall. It's a position they haven't addressed through the first two rounds of the draft as we lead up to pick 58. Is that something that you think maybe within 1265 they don't view as big of a need as maybe you or I do?
I think it's like a best player available situation, like it always is with Goody. And it's not a strong safety class. And going out, and that's why they went out and made that lead for McKinney. And they must see enough in Anthony Johnson Jr. to, I don't know, roll it out. I mean, at least try it out at the front end and see if they can, address the safety thing. They're going to address it later in the draft. I don't know if it's going to happen today or tomorrow, but I'm okay not reaching for it. D-back, where I don't know, I feel like the Packers are in an okay spot. Like they like a good dynamic playmaker. Bringing back Nixon is going to be helpful. Yeah, I would rather go for the more splashy best player available play than like reaching for a safety. So it's an area of need for sure, but I don't think it's as detrimental to the success of the team not making that pick early on. I don't know what you guys feel.
We are also joined here by Alex Patakis as well, 2/3 of the Unpack Pod. Alex Patakis, good to see you. Good to see your bright, shining face. We're going to set the same question up to you, Edgerrin Cooper. How do you feel about it? And then both of you, I want to hear your thoughts on the Jordan Morgan pick from the first round, since we might as well go back with a little bit time here before the Packers make their second pick of the second round.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Great job. Been entertained by you throughout the course of the night while also trying to pay attention to the Bucs game. Shout out to Nick, who's like the Cliff Kingsbury, like palm trees in the background out in California while I'm doing the show. So good for you.
Just an undescript wall behind you.
Yeah. No, but I love the Edgerrin Cooper
You want to see this? Seafood.
Nice. Just generically seafood.
Yeah, I don't know where I am. I'm actually on the patio of a restaurant that I'm not eating or drinking at. I just had to find a spot, so I'll probably get yelled at some point.
Nice. All right. Well, let's keep that going. So I love the Edgerrin pick because we've had so many draft crushes over the course of years on players exactly like him, and he was not really the kind of guy that the Packers would ever invest in, right? So we've come a long way from the days of Blake Martinez. Let's just put it that way. So to get a guy with that type of athleticism, I don't know what the plan is, whether it's like a long-term Quay replacement or Quay pairing, but I think either way that excites me. Like, I don't view Quay Walker as a player who needs to be replaced. I just view this as a, solidifying of, I guess, like the spine of the Packers defense and getting a little bit more athletic in positions where I feel like they need to be so that they can be more versatile. So I'm excited, man. I mean, I also really like the trend of them drafting SEC defensive players because I feel like that's something that so many NFL teams have done forever that we've always kind of like oohed and awed about and been like, man, why can't we do that? So we're doing that. So props to Goody. And if you believe them or what we've heard so far, that he's someone they consider taking in the first round, that's great. I still am interested in what Jason brought up about the Eagles pick right ahead of them influenced them a little bit trading back. But I guess we'll find that out when they do the press conference. But I'm excited about this.
So both of you, Nick, you can start us off here. The Jordan Morgan, Arizona tackle pick there. There was some people not too excited about it. Tackle's hard to get excited about, but what were your thoughts now that we have 24 hours or so from that pick?
I'm not at all up in arms about it. I think what it means is it gives an opportunity for Zach Tom to go to his best and most natural position at center, and I don't know, he could be an all-pro caliber center, and just because he can play multiple positions, as can. I mean, that's like kind of like the Goody recipe. Have these all these linemen be able to play multiple positions. But if that's the best, and it was like a good, like impressive, like Raz thing too, like measurable wise outside of the short arms. Like it seemed like an okay pick. I wasn't expecting it in that spot, and like also like I'm happy they didn't go reach for a deJean or somebody that I just would have been a more popular pick. Like if it's a safe pick, that's fine. Like, and it may not have made sense. Josh, you and I were texting about it last night. It didn't make sense based on the way the board fell for them to move either up or down. So just make the pick. If it's safe, it's safe, and I'm cool with it. Like one of the biggest things that the Packers had to address coming into this season was just more security and more depth on the offensive line. So it's not a wow pick, but I'm fine with it. And I trust Goody's process. So AP, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You gotta solidify the future of the franchise that Jordan Love seems to be. So I think if this is an investment in protecting him, or if it's an investment in allowing others to protect him, whatever it may be, I think that's a good pick. They definitely need depth there. We saw how many injuries they had just on offensive line in general last year. So I think it's I think it's the wise move, and I do think that there was kind of like this element of today and tonight is kind of where the Packers 2024 draft was going to be made anyway. So to a degree, I kind of like came into tonight excited that they just like ticked that box, and then we can get to some of these more fun players. Not that offensive line and protecting your quarterback isn't fun, but you know what I mean.
You mentioned draft crushes as we are talking Alex Patakis, Nick Bornheimer, 2/3 of the Unpacked Pod. Draft crushes, do you have any that you may be looking at as the Packers are now officially in the hole? We're 3 picks away at 58. Do you have any draft crushes that you're hoping to see come off the board of the Green Bay Packers tonight?
I don't know that I do. Who were we talking about yesterday? When the Ravens, like in the most classic way possible, like Nate Wiggins was my draft crush, and it was like the most Ravens pick ever to just get this like stud athlete. So, I mean, the fact that he was available,
like
in
I
that spot,
feel,
yeah,
like I feel the Ravens do that a lot to the Packers. Obviously, going back originally to the Ray Lewis pick, who like that was going to be Ron Wolf's thing. Like, are we all like secretly Ravens fans because they take all of our draft crushes and the guys that we want?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I also think they build their team a similar way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's obviously worked different, but there is a similarity there with the guys they like and the guys the Packers like. I don't know if that's just the internet brain portion of us who are following along with every mock draft and ranking, but to me,
two things can be true.
Yeah, I think the Packers and Ravens are often competing for a lot of the same guys.
Yeah.
Alex, any draft crushes?
I'm not pretend that I'm been on one very, very time, but I've got closely. The Packers coming on. The clock has gotten close, and this is still there. And there are some who he better. TJ Tampa has not yet, right?
TJ Tampa has not gone yet. No, still on the board.
Yeah. Okay, because I'm like a little behind. I'm also streaming on Fubo TV, so I knew he was available before I started talking. But yes, so I wouldn't mind the Packers addressing. I would say like if we're like rooting for somebody, I'm kind of down for that. That's my biggest area of concern. Still, I think is just the secondary generally, and while he's not a safety, I'm also concerned about every down, like true boundary corner. I don't know. I'm really torn because it's like we're going to be in a new system anyway, so it's going to take a while to kind of like figure out exactly what this Packers defense needs to look like. But I think you got to take a defensive back in the next couple of picks.
Yeah. I agree with that. What
sorry.
No, I was just going to say the guy out of Utah, the safety out of Utah, Cole Bishop, is somebody who I looked at a little bit and thought might be available right now. So they could go that way, or the guy Javon Bullard from Georgia, if they did want to address safety right here. I don't think they're going to, though. I think they're going to wait.
I don't either, but it feels like a good time to start thinking about it, right? I mean, I would imagine by the time we walk out of here tonight, hopefully there's at least one safety that will be a new Green Bay Packer.
Oh, Goody might be looking at a Georgia defender.
Right.
What?
Well, that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Bullard does check that box for sure. That might be the biggest box.
I mean, we can't go through a draft without taking somebody
Which
from
box
Georgia.
is bigger for Goody in the war room? Is it Georgia defender or high RAS score? Which is a bigger box for him?
I think they are.
They're at the center of that Venn diagram. Yeah.
Yes, you draw the two circles. They go
just
right
overlap.
to the top.
Great point.
Yeah. Talking with Alex and Nick here from the Unpack Pod. Alex, we'll start off with you. Last night we saw the Chicago Bears add Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. The Vikings added J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. Are you worried about those two new-look teams in the NFC North? And how worried, basically, I mean, let's keep it to the Bears here. How scared are you of the Bears offense now? Because there seems to be reason to be keeping an eye out for those guys.
There does, yeah. I don't want to, come off as like typical arrogant Packers fan, but I do think when you're talking about being concerned about the Bears, you do have to note this is like the third time in 4 or 5 years that we've been having this conversation about being concerned about them and it being a new era. So I just want to note that. That being said, I definitely feel like there is, they're on paper, I feel like they're doing all the right things, which is concerning to me. Like if I were trying to build a team, with what the Bears have at their disposal, I feel like I would be doing very, very similar things. So there's a level of concern, but they're still going to be a very young team. I'm heartened by the hope that I think the Packers defensive scheme change gives me, and feel like that even if the Bears are going to be really good, I don't know that it's going to be next year. So it feels to me that there's going to be like a year or two window for the Packers to kind of try to take the division back from the Lions, I guess, who could regress, ? Level of concern is moderate, I would say, but no panic stations yet.
Yeah.
Boys, certainly appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping on, having fun with us. Go enjoy the rest of draft night. And again, tell people where they can hear you and hear your Packer takes.
Yeah, so Frozen Tundra Frequencies is now where you can find it as the APC in general has been disbanded. But the whole gang is back. I know you guys are going to talk to Justice later, right? So the same place that you can find him, you'll be able to find us. So that's more of like the channel, and we'll stay as the Unpack Pod on there. So I think on X it's just at Frozen Tundra Pod, where you'll find Tex and Justice reporting as eligible, which kind of started that, and. That's there as well.
Homemade meatballs.
that was so distracting. I'm sorry.
I thought you were sitting at a seafood restaurant, Nick.
I'm so confused.
It's multi. I'm on a multicultural strip here.
Oh, Marshawn Nealand off the board. That's another one I could have seen. Like I wouldn't have hated that. All right. Well, you know what? Enjoy those meatballs.
It's too good. All right. Yeah, I'll let you know how they are, fellas.
Appreciate it.
All right. See ya.
Oh, man. Again, the Unpacked Pod. You can check them out at Unpack Pod on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Guys do a great job. Josh and I have been a guest on their program before. Good buddies of ours, so we appreciate them jumping on. Question that he posed at the end. Are you scared of the Bears, Alex Strouf?
Shaking in his boots.
I wouldn't go that far.
You're shaking.
But I think everybody reverts to the take, Gabe, of, it's the Bears, let's screw it up. Which is a fair assessment of the situation. Because as they just pointed out, right, this is the 4th or 5th time in the last decade where they're starting over a quarterback, and we're saying, oh boy, this might be the one. I don't know that we ever really said that with Trubisky, but he had a nice year. And then Justin Fields starts showing some flash. We go, okay, they might finally have a guy. But this one's a little bit different for a couple of reasons. Number one is I feel like Caleb Williams, and there's no such thing as a sure thing, but Caleb Williams feels like the best prospect we've seen in the NFL drafted quarterback since Trevor Lawrence. The other part of this is, for being a team that has the number 1 overall pick in the draft, they are also a team that only won 2 less games than the Packers last year. They were a 7-10 football team.
No, they were a good defense.
They had a really good defense.
I mean,
and they arguably improved this offseason.
As hot as the Packers' offense was at the end of last year, that Bears defense held them to 17 points.
And they were injury riddled when they played them in Week 18.
And it kind of felt like the game was maybe not as close as the final score indicated because you weren't really scared of the Bears scoring too many points because of how bad their offense was a year ago. The Packers only scored 17 in that game. And this is, I guess, you always see the gif or the meme from Django Unchained of the character of Leonardo DiCaprio. You had my curiosity, now you have my attention. They don't have my attention yet, but they have my curiosity.
The whole division has my attention. I think it's the best division in the NFL, bar none. You could make the case of the NFC West.
Are you familiar with the AFC North?
The AFC North, yeah, that's fair.
Heard of them?
Fair point. I have heard of them. Cool. I think the NFC North's in the wheelhouse, though. Detroit was a legitimate Super Bowl contender last year.
Sure.
Green Bay will be a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year.
Okay.
Chicago might be a playoff team.
Yeah.
And Minnesota, I think they could
Is
surprise some
5-win
people,
team.
but no, they're more than that. I don't know that they're a 10-win team, but I don't think they're a 5-win team.
At some point, someone can only win X amount of games. You can't be handing
Who was
out
the worst
above
team in
500.
the AFC North last year? Cincinnati?
They ended up being the worst team, yes.
And they won how many games? 7? 8?
Jake Browning won a couple. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a
I don't remember their record off the top
They
of my
finished
mind.
9-8.
There you go. Every team was over 500. So, no, it's not impossible, to your point.
I don't think that this is that division. I don't think Minnesota's that good. But I'm also not a believer in J.J. McCarthy. And
I'm not a believer in J.J. McCarthy.
And I don't think
either.
J.J. McCarthy's coming in and
I'm certainly not a
going to
believer
make
in
me
Sam
scared of the
Darnold.
Vikings.
But if you're going to plug in somebody that's shot up the draft charts, if it's J.J. McCarthy, let's say.
Did he shoot
and
up the
put him on
draft
an
charts?
offense, he's a top 12 pick.
It's kind of where he went, though. Like, everybody thought he could go 4, then he was going to go 6, and then he was going to go...
We're getting tied down in the semantics here, Gabriel.
Words matter.
The point is,
important.
You're plugging this guy into, plugging a top 12 pick into an offense that has the best wide receiver in football, debatably one of the, if not the best tight end in football, a young, skyrocketing wide receiver in Jordan Addison, and oh, by the way, Aaron Jones is the running back now. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to plug a quarterback in that might be mediocre, it's a pretty darn good situation to walk into. Similarly in Chicago, Caleb Williams looks like he should be a pretty good quarterback in time, but he's walking into an incredibly rich situation when it comes to weapons.
I don't think
two really
both-
good tight ends. He's got several really good wide receivers.
I have a hard time believing both those guys are going to be good.
Williams,
and it's like, to me, it's Williams and or McCarthy.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I think, and my money's on Williams.
Money on Williams.
I'm
looking on that.
I am, because when it comes to J.J. McCarthy,
He can't throw to his left side.
but he's
Can't throw left.
the Zoolander of NFL quarterbacks.
T.J. Hockenson, Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson all need to be on the right side of the field. And it might work out okay.
I mean, it seems like it might get overcrowded over there.
Just hope they're on the left hash the entire time.
You need to go vertical.
Yeah.
My thing with J.J. McCarthy is everything that was talked about him in the lead up. Oh, what a good winner. He's a leader.
Damn, I'm with you on that.
They busted out the high school win stats for him.
Yeah, right? So when all we're talking about, and I don't want to say like the intangibles are not important, because we've talked about some of the Packers draft prospects of, oh, maybe this guy has an attitude issue, right? Like maybe this guy has some things that he wouldn't fit in with the Green Bay Packers. So certainly those things are important. But when they are leading my scouting report on you, like J.J. McCarthy, to me, shot up the draft boards, right? Like became this center of attention because he's a leader, because he's a winner.
Great point.
Like if you are spending a top 12 pick on a quarterback, I want to hear about the this dude can make the sick throws.
He has
right?
the Tory Lowe, oh wow intangibles.
Correct. Like I want to see. I don't want the intangibles. I want the tangibles.
Good point.
Give me the actual stuff he does on the football field. If we're talking about everything off, like to me that makes you closer to Tim Tebow than it does Andrew Luck, right? Because if that's all we're talking about,
yeah,
I think that's really well
said. That to me is a red flag.
Yeah, winning is one of those things, and I will argue always.
By the way, the Packers are on the clock.
Oh, great. I will always argue that winning matters, but it matters when you're doing it in the NFL. It doesn't matter to me as much when you're doing it at the college level and the high school level for some reason that was added into there. Like, Michigan's team was far and away the most talented team. We're going to see like 10 guys go off the board for Michigan in this draft alone. So clearly there was a lot of support around him. And when the best version of Michigan was taking the ball out of J.J. McCarthy's hand, I think that's a problem. Now, could that be just a guy knowing that this is the way we win and this is our best path to winning? Sure, you could write that story for me, but the guy was never in a position, to me, where he had to bring them back or fully lead the charge in terms of put the team on his back and lead and score a bunch of points and keep up with someone else.
I will say
Bulaga going back to the stage.
Yeah, Bulaga is up there, so the Packers pick is in. By the way, just kind of closing.
Javon Bullard, the safety from Georgia, of course. RAS score, Georgia defender, Venn diagram, check the box.
I mean,
I love it though, right? Addressing needs.
Look, it had to happen. Last year they went the entire draft without taking a Georgia defender, so I had to get back to your roots today. Javon Bullard, so really kind of presumably closing the gap of the two starting positions that were open and available on the defensive depth chart.
Guys, I might have been pessimistic last night. I'm ready to say it. Goody's cooking, baby. Goody's cooking.
They fill a couple of needs, and everything is back coming up
Roses
Stroufy.
and sunshine, baby. Everything's turning up Strouf. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know a ton about Javon Bullard. I'm not going to lie to you, but I love that they're taking what is viewed as the best available safety. I was going to say, as you were talking there, Joshy, I was looking at Mel Kiper's best available, and I saw Georgia safety as the 5th best available player. That kind of seemed like a no-brainer when it comes to Brian Gutekunst. But to go back to what you guys just said, right? Now we're checking the boxes. We're looking at some of the needs. Offensive line was a big need. They addressed that day one. Linebacker, big need. They get that early in the second round. And here near the end of the second round, they go safety, likely the starter across from Xavier McKinney. All of a sudden, it seems like, oh, baby, Goody is going to plug some young guys into those big holes. And if they produce, think about what they did a year ago, assume there's at least minor progression from the team he had a year ago, add in some young guys. I like our chances in the stack north.
It can't get worse defensively than a year ago, right? It can't
Which
actually.
part of last year are you referring to?
Like any of the defense. I'm just talking about defensively.
They looked good at the end of the year. To the point where we were debating whether or not Joe Barry saved his job. Remember those conversations?
Yeah, but the end of the year schedule wasn't exactly, murderer's row.
I would argue the Dallas Cowboys were.
Sure. Looked good against Dallas.
Looked good for 3 quarters against San Francisco.
It's good 3 quarters.
Yeah, but guess what? Guess when you play your winning football.
That would be the 4th quarter,
Yeah,
Gabe.
yeah.
To give a little context,
we put up our 4s for a reason.
To give a little context on Bullard, he did score an 8.25 RAS. He did fit inside of the Packers' thresholds for that position. He was a guy that many people had tied to the Packers, obviously Georgia being a huge factor. I'm looking here at the strengths from Dane Brugler's The Beast. Looks the part with the frame of a small linebacker and athleticism of a corner. Rangy defender, and flies downhill from depth to contain outside runs or make stops at or behind the line. Mirrors well laterally when asked to play in the box. Stout, physical. All
Stout
good
and
things.
physical.
All good things to hear about that position. Obviously, that's a guy who's going to end up in next to Xavier McKinney, and a guy they're looking to come down into the box and play that when the third linebacker for the Packers comes off the field, be it McDuffie, I think we're imagining at this point, he's going to be able to fill in there in a similar role in the box for the Packers.
Further from Brugler, overall, Bullard doesn't have ideal size or length, but he is ultra instinctive and makes his presence felt at all 3 levels on the field. Skill set fits best as a hybrid nickel defender who can handle box duties, disguise his intentions, and drop into space. And that's kind of, it seems like that's the hybrid safety role that so many teams are in the market for. So when you go into a nickel, you still have somebody that you feel comfortable enough that can come up and make plays against the run. And the run defense, I would argue, is, again, somehow ironically, Joe Barry ended up being the run game coordinator down for the Miami Dolphins as his new job, but I made the statement that he didn't care about stopping the run as defensive coordinator of the Packers, made zero effort to show his intentions of caring to stop the run as the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. And this is something that, to me, kind of reading the scouting report on him from the Beast, from Dane Brugler over at The Athletic, makes me think, okay, this is somebody that can help them out against the run, which is, to me, the biggest area that they can improve in defensively.
1,000,000%. It's been an issue every year, and when it comes to the tackling portion of what you just read, it's also been an issue at the safety position in the last few years. So, I don't know, right? I mean, ultimately, with all of these picks, we won't know exactly what these guys are for another year plus. But from what we have on paper right now, offensive tackle, linebacker, safety, I give, at least from a positional standpoint and the way they're addressing it early and often, A+.
Yeah, two main things from the takeaway of the first two picks is the needs that everybody was so worried about have been immediately addressed. They haven't gone cornerback, but they filled
what I was about to bring up.
They filled the two missing spots, the spots on the depth chart when you pull up ESPN.com that you're going, who's going to play there? Those are now filled with two guys. The other thing interesting to me...
Wait. Weren't you just making fun of Strouf earlier for going to ESPN.com?
I was being belittling to those people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's wrong with ESPN.com?
I was telling them to...
was I in the room when you were making fun of me?
To shove it. I'm always making fun of you. Always consider that to be the case. The other thing is...
HR.
We mentioned it with...
producer war going on. I like it.
Xavier McKinney... up the middle. We mentioned it with Edgerrin Cooper up the middle. Now, another guy who you figure is going to be a factor up the middle. The Packers are solidifying the middle of the defense. I'm interested now. Is this just what we're going to look at outside of Morgan and be like, wow, this was the Hafley draft? This was the draft.
D-tackle next?
Where that's the one spot that seems to be lingering out there. There's still remaining options.
I'm so excited to see what this Jeff Hafley defense looks like. Because obviously curiosity makes the mind wander, right? And I can only take so much Boston College film. I'm incredibly
well, especially because it's not like Boston College was.
They stunk.
Any good?
Yeah, I mean, he was on the hot seat.
Bad.
Yeah, he was on the hot seat had he not left willingly. So, I mean, this is really exciting. I'm fired up, guys. All of a sudden, Goody's cooking,
and now we wait.
We got a little bit of wait here.
30 picks away from the Packers' next selection. Apparently, Alex Strouf is saying deuces.
Yeah.
He's out of here.
Right when
See you
things
later.
Get tough.
Well, you got Dimaggio coming up.
Leaves.
You got Mosqueda coming up. You don't need me.
Jason going to be joining
needed
again.
You this whole time.
How do you work with him?
Look.
How do you work with him? Look. Does he talk to you that way?
No.
Why do you talk to me that way?
Because you put it on a tee.
Yeah.
You put it right up there and didn't expect him to hit it out of the park.
Put it on the tee? See what you did there.
Listen to On the Tee.
Mondays, 6 o'clock,
Nope.
94.5. Tuesdays, 6 o'clock, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee. It's a Tuesdays now?
Yeah, it's Tuesdays now.
When did that change?
This season.
When did that start?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, here we go. See? And you wonder, why is Josh so mean to me?
It used to be a test we had to take to become a producer in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
apparently times have changed.
They really let any jokester.
Hey, you paved the path for me, pal. You were the
I
first
did lay
producer
the
from
foundation.
Madison. Guess who's second?
Strophy, we certainly appreciate it, bud. Enjoy the rest of draft night and then draft tomorrow.
I thought you were going to say enjoy the Raz, as in the relative athletic store, which I will, dude. Yeah. Thank you very much. Love you, fellas. We'll talk to you next week.
Alex Strouf joining us here on ESPN Wisconsin Draft Nights. You've got me and Josh DiMaggio the rest of the way, but as Strophy said, we do have Justice Mosqueda from Acme Packing Company. We have Rob Domofsky. We have Jason Wilde and more as Draft Night continues here on ESPN Wisconsin.
This is Draft Night coverage on ESPN Wisconsin.
This update is sponsored by UW Credit Union. For every stage of life, UW Credit Union is here for every you. The Brewers and U.S. Cellular are celebrating the outstanding educators in our community with the Grand Slam Teacher of the Month Award. Visit brewers.com/teacher to learn more and nominate an educator today. Join UW Credit Union at uwcu.org. Insured by NCUA.
Protect your dream home with American Family Insurance. And you can weather any storm. You'll also save up to 25% by bundling home, auto, and life. American Family Insurance. Get a quote. Find an agent at amfam.com.
Products not available in every state. Discounts may not apply to all coverages on an auto or home policy. Discounts do not apply to life insurance policies. Visit amfam.com to learn how discounts may apply to you. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating companies, American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
Bandana? Check. Boots? Check. Gloves? Check. As a motorcycle rider in Wisconsin, you may go to great lengths to protect your image. Just be sure you're protecting yourself, too. Wear a Department of Transportation-approved helmet. Perform safety checks on your motorcycle. Know the traffic laws and don't take risks. Motorists and motorcyclists can work together to achieve zero preventable deaths on Wisconsin roads. Zero in Wisconsin. Together, we can save lives. Learn more at zeroinwisconsin.gov. Wisconsin DOT.
Rah. Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin present your Badger Minute. Here's Alex Strouf.
Varsity on Wisconsin On Demand is home to all the latest and best Badgers content on ESPN Wisconsin. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Wisconsin On Demand, and wherever you get your podcasts. As the conversation about the NCAA transfer portal and name, image, likeness erupts, Wisconsin men's basketball head coach Greg Gard joined Wilde and Tausch this week to talk about the ongoing issues.
We've got to figure out the best path going forward nationally to put ourselves in the best position where there is it revenue sharing? I don't know what the answer is. Nobody has the answer. That's why we're sitting here in this position.
Find the full conversation with Greg Gard on Wisconsin On Demand or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Wilde and Tausch.
Get 0% interest for up to 36 months, or no down payment, no interest, and no payments for up to 18 months. Book before April 30th at PellaWI.com.
Good Karma Brands is proud to be an equal opportunity employer. Our policy is to provide equal opportunity employment, development, and advancement to all current and potential teammates. If you are an organization that maintains a job bank, provides employment information, or gives job referrals, you may request to be placed on the station's mailing list for future career opportunities. To learn more about careers at Good Karma Brands, please email careers@goodkarmabrands.com.
As you're putting your spring calendar together, we'd love to have you join us Saturday, May 18th for Marco Siki's 6th annual Casting for Kids Fishing Tournament to support the American Family Children's Hospital, UW Carbone Cancer Center. We're on the Madison Chain of Lakes early, then back at the Alliant Energy Center for 2:30 happy hour, dinner, and live and silent auctions with cool autographed hockey items, guided tours, and a brand new fishing boat. There's even more on our website, castingforkids.org. Help us help the kids. Castingforkids.org.
The biggest names in the basketball world.
Dame Dollar Lillard.
Having fun and honest conversations.
He puts it in the shoe, right? And sets the tone for brothers and sisters and family.
Every week, Thanasis Adetokounmpo sits down with special guests on The Analysis Show. Presented by Potawatomi Casino Hotel and curbless, ready-to-drink cocktails.
Fantastic.
Find The Analysis Show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And on YouTube by searching The Analysis Show.
You're listening to Draft Night coverage on ESPN Wisconsin.
Gabe Neitzel, Josh Dimaggio taking you the rest of the way here on ESPN Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us either on ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison YouTube pages, or, of course, you can also check us out on social media, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. The Packers done as of right now in the second round, although I'm not expecting them to trade with San Francisco or Kansas City to get back into the second round because things are moving fast and furious in round two. The Packers have taken Javon Bullard, the safety out of Georgia, with the 58th overall selection. Since then, Blake Fisher, tackle out of Notre Dame, Cole Bishop, a safety out of Utah, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback out of Missouri, and Roger Rosegarten, a tackle out of Washington, have all gone. Just 2 picks remaining in round number 2. Look, I think if you are a Packers fan, and I know I feel on our show this morning, Josh, I feel on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, we were all pretty much in favor of the pick. Like, we got it. Yes, it's not one of those offensive tackles that we were necessarily talking about or was really on our radar. As you pointed out, he was somebody who was potentially mocked to the Packers earlier in the process, and as we've moved along, he kind of fell off and was maybe closer to 30 in the mock drafts, and people didn't necessarily scroll down that far to see, oh, here's an offensive tackle we could take. So outside of that relative surprise, I don't think there was any shock that they took an offensive tackle because it was a position we were constantly talking about in the lead up to the draft. I know that Kyle Wallace on KBN was somebody who was disappointed with the pick initially last night out at the Q Club. Alex Strouf was disappointed. I think he's kind of come around on it. But if you were one of those people who was disappointed last night, I think you have nothing but excitement over what they did with the athletic guys they've gotten to help shore up the defense in round 2.
Yeah, other than the cornerback position specifically, the Packers have addressed the two biggest, the two most glaring, and the two needs that were bandied about most amongst the talking heads, the chuckleheads like us on the radio about they need to figure these spots out. They got two guys who were well thought of. I think the Edgerrin Cooper one is probably the most exciting one since he was a sneaky first-round pick. I believe you read the report about that being a potential.
That from Albert Breer of the NFL Network saying the Packers were potentially considering him in round 1.
I do think it was interesting. I think it was the director of college scouting, Patrick Moore, is his position. Assistant director of college scouting. He said that they really don't have a position at this point for Bullard. They just see him as a good defensive back, which is interesting. Obviously, we're all going to look to that open safety position. But to me, if you're a Packers fan, you have to be pretty elated with the outcome. So far with the first 2 picks. There was a trade back. They acquired more picks. You still got the sexy guy in Edgerrin Cooper, and now you add another Georgia defender. Are people mad that it's another Georgia guy? I'm sure there's going to be people out there saying it.
Look, the Georgia guys haven't necessarily worked out the way we'd hoped at this point. Again, I doubt that Eric Stokes' 5th-year option is picked up when that deadline approaches next month. Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker the following year have been underwhelming, to put it nicely, to this point. Maybe things change for them in the new defensive system. Maybe things start to turn around for them. It's certainly a possibility, but look, again, like being concerned about that, oh man, the Georgia defenders haven't worked out with us in the past. To me, that's being concerned about Jordan Morgan because he had an ACL, because David Bakhtiari had an ACL.
Right, and there's plenty other Georgia football players who have turned out to be quite good. It's the same issue people have said when, like, just because somebody failed from one college doesn't mean they will keep. And I'm not even fully ready to say the Georgia guys the Packers have acquired have totally failed at this point. There's plenty of reasons to point to that you could explain away. Now, am I bullish on Devontae Wyatt? Certainly not. Am I more excited about the potential of Quay Walker, especially next to Edgerrin Cooper now? Yeah, you can start to write that story for me. So the Packers took needs. They stayed within their thresholds that everyone talks about, everyone has gotten to know at this point. I am interested in how this is connected to Jeff Hafley specifically, and how many of these picks are directly things and guys he was looking to fill at the position. Going need like this is very not Packers, and it is very interesting to me in terms of they had 2 glaring holes, they filled them immediately, and now the rest of the draft is kind of up in the air to us at this point. There's no lingering, well, who are they going to play here for me anymore?
Yeah, I would agree to a certain point in terms of the need. They've certainly done that, I think, in previous drafts. Look, it's always funny to me when you talk best player available. Mm-hmm. And, man, shockingly, somehow
they fit needs.
Man, it's somehow they just, for all these teams, they talk about taking the best player available, and yet somehow they take players where they have needs on their roster. It's wild how that works out sometimes.
It just so happens that when you have glaring needs, guys get better grades. They get bumped up your draft board. They are seen as a priority. And when it comes between maybe 2 or 3 guys, you take the one
the
that
need
fills
becomes the tiebreaker. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how this works. I don't think the Packers are certainly a team who are more willing to go outside of need. But they are like every NFL team, and they are trying to fill holes and put together a roster that they think can win them football games.
Yeah, like, for example, last year taking 2 tight ends in the first 3 rounds.
Yep. Pretty clear.
Again, pretty big hole on the roster that they were able to fill in the draft a year ago. Just kind of keeping you updated on the NFL draft as we are just about ready to turn things over to round number 3 in the NFL draft. The 49ers with pick number 64. Pick is in. Don't know who yet is going to be that final pick in round number 2. I don't think, again, we've batted this around throughout the course of the night, and it's been more focused on the Chicago Bears and what they were able to do in the first round yesterday, having 2 top 10 picks, and then J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings going to get him at number 10, right behind the Bears at 9. But how much better do you feel like the division has gotten in the last 24 to 36 hours?
Yeah, I think it's significant. I think, as with all of these picks and with both of these teams, I'm at a point of I'll believe it when I see it. I certainly believe it more when it comes to the Chicago Bears. I think you would be naive to not look at that and what they've done the past 2 years with the trades they've been able to pull off, the talent they've been able to add to the team, and now the draft picks that are coming in as brand new faces. I think it's interesting that the Bears' long storied history has always been about the defense. The 1985 Bears defense is the reason they won a Super Bowl. They had a Super Bowl shuffle. They were all stars. You don't really see that in today's NFL anymore.
And like 2 stud running backs, and that's about it.
Yes. And now we have the Bears who have fully invested into the offense. They have one of, if not the best wide receiver rooms as we sit here and look at it on paper. And they have the one exciting guy every single person has talked about as the number 1 overall pick. I do think if you were to write a good story about the Packers not having to worry about the Chicago Bears is 30 years of ineptitude, the McCaskey family still being the owners of that team, and the coaching staff. Who is Matt Eberflus? Is he a good enough coach? What have they done on the offensive side of the ball in terms of coaching? And how is their offensive line going to stack up? Are they going to be good enough to get those guys the ball to make Caleb Williams not just a guy who's running around with his head cut off, which he did pretty well at USC, to be fair to him. But I'm paying attention to the Bears, and it seems alarmist, but it's even more so than the Justin Fields. I thought Justin Fields was going to be better than he turned out to be. It played out clearly in front of us. He's not the guy. They basically had to give him away. But when it's the number 1 overall pick, the consensus number 1 overall pick, and the second best wide receiver in the draft class, or third best, depending on whose rankings you're looking at, you have to pay attention to that. It can't be the Bears are the Bears anymore in Green Bay.
It makes me wonder if he would have been the number 1 pick a year ago.
Yeah.
If they would have taken him last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he might have been the number 1 pick a year ago. He was just not eligible to do so. So the Bears, who had the number 1 pick, decided to trade out. Granted, again, Justin Fields made that decision where almost for them, where they decided, hey, we're going to ride out with him, try to get more capital, try to build around him. Obviously didn't work out, although one of the pieces they got for trading that number 1 pick a year ago is DJ Moore, and then obviously ended up with the number 1 pick this year. So it's working out in the Bears' favor. I understand the argument of, man, the Bears have never been able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. At some point, they will.
You'd imagine.
Like, at some point.
Odds would say.
Right? Because, I mean, and I'm sure Bears fans were saying the same thing when Packer fans got excited about Brett Favre in 1992 or 1993. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I'm not saying it turns completely, because I really love where the Packers are. And I'm not saying, I just think that the Bears are going to be pretty formidable, because, yes, I feel like a lot of the draft narrative around Caleb Williams over the last, 2-3 months has been largely negative. And it's because in the, industrial draft complex, we said all the positive things about him already. So the only thing to point out were the negative things, because this kid has been looked at as the number 1 pick for that long.
Yeah, and that's why I think if you're going to make a convincing argument to anybody in the audience at this point, or to me, it's structural issues within the Bears organization. I mean, They just had a new announcement for their stadium in which they opened up with a prayer praying for wins in Super Bowls, which is not something you would expect to happen when you start talking about the new stadium you're building and how, well, wins haven't come the conventional way, so we're going to look to the big man upstairs for a little help for the Chicago Bears, as if they are more important than the 31 other teams in the NFL.
Yeah, look, and and those are certainly, I think, fair points to make, Josh, because if I'm the Bears and I'm sitting there with the number 1 overall pick and I know I'm probably going to take a quarterback, I just reboot the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I clean house.
Yeah.
Which is the mistake they made initially with Justin Fields, is they held on to the previous regime, let them make that pick.
Yeah.
And then had to, in year 1 of your young quarterback, now reboot everything. Like, I would have, if those two, if Poles and Eberflus are on the hot seat, man, just boot them now and hard reboot this instead of them being on the hot seat, coaching and picking and general managing for their jobs.
I am interested in the Eberflus factor of it, like why they decided he is the guy moving forward for them. I don't know how the offensive staff stacks up for Caleb Williams, but it seems like they're adding all the pieces that they think are going to help Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is coming in with the most amount of pressure we've seen in a long time. Like, Andrew Luck is probably the last person where it got quite this high. He has more talent than you could ever dream of. So,
as a guy who's the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Again, look at what Bryce Young walked into last year in terms of the weapons, because they decided to trade away DJ Moore to go get Bryce. Adam Thielen was their number 1 receiver going into the year last year. Like, that receiving core, I mean, we thought it was bad for the Packers a couple of years ago before they drafted, after they traded away, Devontae, and it took a while for some of these guys to get up to speed. And now we're at a point where we feel pretty good. Like, we thought it was bad in Aaron Rodgers last year.
Yeah.
Holy cow, is that place barren of talent when it comes to pass catchers, and it's not getting any better anytime soon.
Did you see, I don't know if I sent it in the group chat for Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, listen to us 7 to 9, ESPN Milwaukee, that David Tepper approached a restaurant that had a sign that said,
yes, I saw that, yes.
Let the GM and coach make the picks, and he came in and took the guy's hat off who was standing there. That's the type of organization where pull the Chicago Bears and the foundation out and make it David Tepper and Dave Canellis. There you could easily convince me, even though they have all the talent in the world, this isn't going to work, because look at who's running the organization. The McCaskies have plenty of things you can point to. It's just, at some point, you imagine the Bears team are going to turn it around. The long-awaited hope is going to happen. What's going to be the biggest challenge is Caleb Williams meeting the criticism that comes with Chicago media, meets the criticism with, frankly, the Bears were a 7-win team, but if they're a 7-win team again, is that good enough for him?
No.
And is that going to be good enough for the Chicago media?
I guess it depends upon how the 7 went. Like, if he still looks really good and it's like an Aaron Rodgers type, his first year starting, yes, the Packers were 6-10, but you're like, hey, they got
damn clear.
Hey, they got something cooking there.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what happens in Chicago and they only win 6 or 7 games, I think that's, again, the how behind it is ultimately going to matter.
I do want to pivot here a little bit, because I see this in the YouTube comments, and we know the YouTubers get upset if we don't look at it.
Sure.
The Cooper DeJean thing and the trade up right in front of the Packers has been a big discussion. Do you think we will get, be it Jason Wilde, Rob Demoski doing reporting, because obviously Goody's not going to come out and say, yeah, we wanted Cooper DeJean, but someone paid to get him. Do you think we'll get a storyline of the Packers never really believed in this guy? They actually had him graded lower than Bullard, who they ended up taking later in it. Like, how much clarity do you expect from that? Because if you are somebody who is doubting the Brian Gutekunst and the draft he's had so far, you point to the trade right above in the first round and then the trade at 45. I mean, the Packers traded down.
Yes. Right after, obviously, Cooper DeJean went, because somebody jumped in front of them.
They had all the ammo in the world to go up and get Cooper DeJean if they viewed him as a first-round pick. How much clarity do you think? First of all, do you think that was the pick, and do you think we'll get an answer if the Packers wanted him or not?
I don't think we're going to get the answer on whether or not they wanted him. I think Goody plays these things pretty close to the vest when it comes to the guys that he really wanted. In terms of, do I think that was the pick? I don't.
I'm having a hard time believing it, too.
I'm having a hard time. And look, I understand because I fell in love with the kid too. Like, you hear all these different things. Yeah.
That's
cool. Like everything that he was able to do in terms of his athletic score and the way he tested and the way he played it again, the one thing Iowa can do is play defense. So I guess they can do two things, but the other thing is just really specific to one kid. They can punt, right? They can play defense and they can punt. That's what Iowa football does. And that defense was really good. He was a big part of that. And especially when you talk about his versatility in today's NFL, he became intriguing. But additionally, I wonder how much of a need that was for the Packers. Because they're looking, going, okay, maybe we can play him on the outside, but the slot, we're kind of good. I guess we could use some depth there, but we just paid Keyshawn Nixon a bunch of money to be the slot guy / return man.
Yeah.
And do we think he's good enough to be a safety? And the difference between him and Bullard, to me, who the Packers ultimately took, and we presume is going to be the starting safety, is the physicality that is talked about around Bullard, how he can drop down. When we're talking about Cooper DeJean, we're talking about making plays on the back end, which is important.
It's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But I think the Packers were looking for more somebody who could come up in the box and make the plays the way Bullard can.
I would wonder,
because you already have McKinney on the back end to make those plays you're looking for.
I would wonder if they view McKinney and Cooper DeJean as almost redundant.
Yes.
Because Cooper DeJean isn't a box safety. He's not a guy you're going to compare to a linebacker. He's only played on the outside. So if you're writing a story about him playing a safety, that's projection. We don't have really film to work off of. And he doesn't seem to have the body type or the play on tape that would indicate this is a guy you're going to play in the slot. So when you made the Xavier McKinney pick, if you're writing a story of him being a safety, I think that was the moment that Cooper DeJean was no longer a priority for the Green Bay Packers. And as we talked about with need, you're not going to immediately draft a guy you view as a redundant talent to the one you just paid a boatload of money in free agency.
Correct. You're not going to Atlanta Falcons the situation.
Right.
You're not going to go out and go, hey, we spent a bunch of money on you. Let's go ahead and draft your backup.
Yeah.
Like that's just now. If Xavier McKinney was in a Kenny Clark situation, then it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because, okay, he's versatile enough, we can figure out snaps for him, but then we can slide him over to this spot once this player leaves the following year in free agency. But that's not the case, clearly, with Xavier McKinney. What do you think? Do you think that we're going to get any sort of answer? Do you think that was the pick?
I think there will be reporting that comes out that is leaked out. Now, we know the Packers, in their own way, do subterfuge when certain things may not be viewed as positive to them. They will leak out into the media things that do make it look positive. I don't think it will be like a Rob Demovsky story. Hey, they wanted Cooper DeJean. They got outbid. They got jumped. They thought they had him. But I do think we will know and we will have some sourcing or some indication that either the Goody made a mistake and didn't get aggressive with Cooper DeJean, or that he was never really even in the consideration. Because, I mean, we saw the Edgerrin Cooper news come out from Albert Breer. So the agents are talking. If the Packers had called Cooper DeJean and said, you're our plan in the second round, and then he ends up going there, I think that information will become available.
Much like we found out that Ray Lewis was Ron Wolf's guy back in the day. They get, ends up going, and he kind of, panics and ends up taking John Michaels. I'm with you there. And as we've said before, they had plenty of ammo to go up and get him if that's who they really wanted. I just don't think that's...
What interests me is people are tying the trade back as to their guy got taken, so let's move back. But to me, trades happen earlier than that.
Yeah, you're ready to go with all sorts of... Especially in these rounds.
Yes.
It's not the first round where you have 10 minutes, to kind of sort through and figure it all out.
Right.
Things are moving faster, and when you only have 5 minutes to make your pick, Like the decisions in these rounds in terms of trade up, trade, like they need to happen quick. So you're anticipating what's happening in front of you before you decide to.
And now it's certainly possible. The story could be the Packers tried to trade up 1 or 2 spots and they said, no, we've already got a trade deal here. So then the Packers said, okay, let's look for a trade back. And they were able to pull that off. That's certainly a portion that we need to consider. But to me, piecing it together now as it played out in real time, I find it hard to believe because they haven't gone corner, which is, if you were to say he's not redundant to Xavier McKinney, you would figure that would be a priority for the team. If they're going to take one guy and they end up moving back, that means there's probably someone else on the board that they view as not quite to the level, but they're going to take him. So now that we're 2 picks away from it, without a cornerback off the board, without a safety of the same ilk, I'm putting together, and maybe I have my Packers colored glasses on, my green and gold colored glasses, and I'm telling a story to make myself feel better.
Being a little toady.
Yeah, ribbit. But to me, I don't really think that's what happened. If piecing it together now as we sit here, it doesn't seem like that was what happened.
It seems like as a fan base, we did fall in love with Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
Do you think we follow Cooper DeJean as close as some of the other draft picks that maybe Goody or Ted Thompson had drafted? Because the first one that obviously comes to mind is TJ. And when they decided not to draft TJ Watt, they trade back, end up taking Kevin King, right? And TJ Watt has become what he has. Yeah. But there's also a Wisconsin factor to that. It seems like anytime somebody from Wisconsin gets passed on by the Packers, that's when we pay attention the most. But it seems like, and again, he didn't reach the TJ Watts, I'm blanking on the wide receiver. They ended up taking Robert Ferguson instead of Chris Chambers. Yeah. Everybody loved Chris Chambers way back in the day. So I don't know if it reaches that level, but it seemed like the fan base had kind of fallen in love with Cooper DeJean, and that was the one we were tracking to see if he was going to be available for the Packers last night.
Yeah, to me, both Jordan Morgan and Edgerrin Cooper and Javon Bullard are going to be compared against Cooper DeJean. I think Jordan Morgan is also going to be compared against Graham Barton and Tyler Guyton, who went after him. But I think both of those guys, if
Barton becomes a guard in center, again, most places projecting him to be that. Now, in fairness, if you go to something that we've referenced quite a bit tonight, The Beast by Dane Brugler over at The Athletic, he had Morgan listed as a guard as well. Yeah. But the Packers clearly see him as a tackle. Bill Belichick views him very much as a tackle, which we can talk about later, about how much of a sicko truly Bill Belichick is.
As much as Iowa isn't Wisconsin, I do feel like Wisconsin fans almost feel a sort of kinship to that program.
Sure, Big Ten.
Big Ten, a team you see a lot, a team you hear a lot, a team that you're competing in the former West of now at this point. I think we're going to see, believe me, the first time Cooper DeJean makes an interception as a member of his new team.
We're going to see it.
We are going to see it.
Hopefully that doesn't happen in Brazil. Hopefully his first career interception doesn't happen in week 1, because that is just going to be disastrous on Packers Twitter.
Week one, a PBU will be something people are mad about and calling us Monday morning about. That's
Packers win 27-17 in Brazil.
Edgerrin Cooper played 15 snaps. DeJean was on the field the whole time and broke up 2 passes. Yeah. That is what some people are going to be, because some people just don't like Brian Gutekunst. It stems back to some questionable drafts and then obviously the Aaron Rodgers decision. It's just, at this point, and on KBN earlier today, Ben Brust and the crew were saying that they've given Goody a 1-year lease. To me, the past 2 drafts have given Goody a lot more than 1 year, where I'm going to trust, I'm going to see it play out, I'm going to watch these guys compete, and I'm going to give them a fair shot. I'm not going to be making a judgment week 3, week 4, or even week 10. Like, at some point, when you hit as many draft picks as you did in 2023, you got as many guys in 2022 that are contributors. The highs certainly aren't that high. We still have questions about the guys taken up at the top end of the draft, but to me, he's built a lot of favor with his success and even his use of free agency, which is traditionally something we never expected. You were on a golf trip because when does the first day of free agency ever matter? And it mattered the most it's mattered since like Reggie White. So
yeah, because like even when they signed Charles Woodson, that was like later in free agency. Correct. Charles was just still out there hanging out. And look, I mean, Chewy and I have run through Brian Gutekunst's draft record, like going back to before last year. And the first handful, again, not a lot to be desired there. No, some big-time hits in terms of Jair. Obviously, Jordan Love, we anticipate being a pretty big hit. He's given Rashawn Gary a bunch of money. Elton Jenkins is really the best part, as of right now, of the Packers line. But a lot more misses than hits.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were some holes that he created himself at wide receiver because he didn't hit any wide receivers until the last two drafts. But the last two drafts, to me, have given Goody, and I say this as not somebody who 100% is behind Goody, and I'm not a Goody stan, but there's nothing you can do but respect the 2022 and 2023 drafts. Like you have to respect what the man has done, and you recognize that, and it to me is more than just a 1-year lease. Joining us now, once again, we have Jason Wilde from Green Bay jumping on as the second round is completed. We are a handful of picks into round 3. Packers still not picking for a while. They have the 88th overall selection, which is the 25th pick in the third round. Jason, I think in the second round, we talked about it when Edgerrin Cooper went. And now with Javon Bullard, they have now presumably kind of gone after two players I would anticipate are going to be in competition to close out those two spots that are open on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, they filled two obvious needs. They needed to do it. We'll see how they pair Edgerrin Cooper with Quay Walker, who will play the strong side if they'll put Isaiah McDuffie there, and he'll be the guy that only plays 15 to 20% of the snaps. That sure sounds like they like the idea of two flowing, fast linebackers together. That was the idea with taking Cooper. And then Bullard, they had to get somebody to line up alongside Xavier McKinney. It turns out when he was on his recruiting visit to Alabama, he took a picture with Xavier McKinney, who was playing at Alabama at the time. And now they're going to be side by side in this defense. That's not a slight on their other guys that they already have on the roster at safety, but you don't spend a second-round pick on a guy like Bullard without the express plan of him being a starter. So, you know, the guy was a stud his sophomore year. He was the MVP of the national semifinal game that Georgia won in 2022. They moved him to free safety last year, but it sounds like he's a really good fit for what they want to do in the back end alongside McKinney. So these are two really, you know, logical, sensible value picks. Listening to Josh while I was waiting, though, I still, you know, I don't have the green and gold glasses on. I don't want to assume just because, as we've talked about, the fan base had fallen in love with Cooper DeJean, but when you're sitting at 41, which is the Aaron Rodgers pick, which is still, you know, pretty high pick, I think this is probably more a scenario like he talked about with Jaden Reed, right? Where he started at 45 last year, then traded to 48, then traded back to 50, and still got Jaden Reed. And if Jaden Reed had been gone, he said he would have said, meh, sucks, but then we'll take somebody else with a similar grade. I'm guessing that Cooper was the guy he wanted if Cooper DeJean wasn't there. Maybe Cooper DeJean doesn't factor into this at all. But it's hard not to view the timing at least a little bit with curiosity. So whether DeJean was or wasn't the target at 41, moving back, if he would have taken Cooper, too many Coopers on this equation, if he would have taken Edgerrin Cooper at 41 and then took him at 45 anyway and got 2 picks as a bonus, great. That's awesome for him. And then Bullard to just sit and pick at 58, you know, he's, the third or second safety in this draft? I mean, I think they feel really good about filling those two needs the way they did.
I saw that what's his name here? Patrick Moore, the assistant director of college scouting, was speaking, and he mentioned that he didn't really name a position, or they didn't have a position in mind. They just viewed him as a defensive back. Do you think there's anything to that in terms of that guy being a truly multi-positional Swiss Army knife? Or is he just kind of saying what he thinks is supposed to be said up at the podium? That's a Bullard.
Look,
Sorry.
I think Bullard. Yeah, I think Bullard is. We were just talking to him before I came on, and he talked about his versatility being his biggest strength. I mean, for them in 2022, he played what they call the star position in Kirby Smart's defense. It's the nickel. Just because they paid Keyshawn Nixon doesn't mean that they're always going to want Keyshawn Nixon in that role. Maybe they move Bullard down in some situations and they bring Anthony Johnson Jr. in as the other safety alongside McKinney. He does have that versatility. He can cover man-to-man. He can stuff the run. He can certainly play deep center field. They like his versatility. And the fact that he played in two different positions basically in 2022 and 2023, gave them the chance to see him playing and doing a variety of things. So to me, this, again, he fills the need. I always get a kick out of the best player available concept. Ted used to say, it just worked out that way. He even said that when they traded up for Clay Matthews, which I wanted to say, Ted, you can't say it. That's just how it worked out when you traded up to take the guy. That's not how that works.
When it comes to, so the thing about, I guess now we're talking about with Javon Bullard and Cooper DeJean, because I feel like Cooper, because the fan base fell in love with him, who knows how the organization felt about him, is their versatility. But they're different types of versatility. And it seems like, at least to me, Jason, that maybe Bullard fits what they want a little bit more because he's more of a physical player. And how important is that to have a safety in today's NFL that you can feel can be a little bit more physical, especially near the line of scrimmage? You're going to smaller packages, and yet, as we've seen when the Packers have gone to nickel in years past, they've stunk against the run. And you need to have that guy who can be a little bit more physical as a defensive back.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby Smart called him a little stick of dynamite. I mean, that sounds to me like a guy who's not afraid to come up and hit you, right? He's 5'10". I think he's listed at 200 pounds. Whether or not he actually was, I'm not sure. But he's not like, I always think of Aaron Rouse. They drafted him in the 3rd round ages ago. He was 6'4". He was enormous, right? But he couldn't move. This is obviously a guy that, and the game has obviously changed a bunch since they took Aaron Rouse. But this is a guy that he better be able to fill and crack on running backs when they're coming through a hole, right? I mean, that's one of the things. We haven't talked to Jeff Hafley very much, but one of the things he talked about is how those safeties have to be sure tacklers, and they have to be able to come downhill, break down, and make those plays so they don't get out the other end. And it's one of the reasons, quite frankly, that I don't think they had a whole heck of a lot of interest in re-signing Darnell Savage, because they didn't trust him to be able to come down with speed, break down, and make the tackle. We saw it way too many times during his 5 years here that he missed too many tackles. So, that's the expectation for Bullard. I do think that there are some questions about Cooper in that realm. He did have some fairly high missed tackle numbers. So I think that's a little bit of a concern. I know Dane Brugler wrote about how he, has a tendency to kind of over pursue and get out of position. So they'll have to coach that out of him. But again, I saw Albert Breer mention this. I had Edgerrin Cooper as a possibility for their 1st round pick. And so that would seem to be a pretty good value there. I mean, I also had Cooper DeJean as a possibility for their 1st round pick, but it would appear that there are a number of defensive players that have gone so far tonight that look like good values. And of course we can trace that to, what was it? The 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks, plus I think 8 offensive linemen went. So now you're talking about 14 first-round picks devoted to quarterback and offensive line. No defensive player taken till number 15 overall. So there was a push-down effect of those defensive players. And And it would appear anyway that the Packers benefited from that.
Jason, appreciate it, buddy. Look forward to talking to you again later in the third round after the Packers make those selections as well.
I look forward to it, fellas. All right, take care. Be good.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason Wilde, again, still going to be joining us later tonight, but one of Jason's buddies.
He's going to be joining us here shortly. I did get a please give Hunter a little bit time to move over, so we just have to wait to see Rob pop up. He isn't waiting, so I'm excited to hear from Rob and what he thought about the first 3 picks we've seen from the Packers.
Yeah, and again, when we start talking about second-round picks, there are going to be questions. I mean, I feel, especially even when you get outside, I don't know what, the top 10? Like, again, there's going to be some strengths and weaknesses, and that's what we deal with. And I see our buddy Rob Domofsky from ESPN.com joining us now here on ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night. Rob, thanks for the time. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Doing great. Got enough sleep? You're rested up? You're ready to go for round number 3? I know it's always a busy time when you guys are up there in Green Bay for the draft.
You know what, Gabe? Yesterday and today are the easy days. Like, they're not that long of days. Check with me tomorrow, and I'll be struggling. I mean, especially with, what does he have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks right now tomorrow, I think. That's the slog. But I think this is the first 2 days of the draft are really the most interesting 2 days of the offseason, maybe other than the first day of free agency, because it's just there's so much anticipation and just the teams can change. Your team can change so much in these 2 days.
So what you're telling me is you prefer this method of Thursday, Friday, Saturday draft back versus when it was just 2 days on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, some of the kids don't even realize that, right? That it was rounds 1 through 3 on Saturday and rounds 4 through 7. I guess Sunday is the same as Saturday, 4 through 7, but those first 3 rounds on Saturday, and that was and the time between picks was like still 10 minutes. So that was a struggle. I don't know if you remember this, Gabe, but I think it was my first or second draft here, maybe the 97, 98 draft, somewhere in there at the end of the draft. I think it was that Mike Holmgren was talking about, the picks, and then he's about to walk off the podium and goes, oh, by the way, Reggie White's retiring. And that was like, trumped everything. So, we were like, hey, get back here. Get back to the podium.
By the way, guys, have fun with that. Reggie's not going to be here next year.
You guys figure that out. See ya. Rob, thank you for joining us today and playing phone tag with me the past 2 days to get you on here. What is your biggest takeaway from these 2 picks? Obviously, the Cooper DeJean factor and the Packers getting traded above and then moving back possibly in response. They go linebacker and Bullard at safety. Like, what are your 2 biggest takeaways from what we've seen so far today?
Yeah, the thing with DeJean is, I mean, we don't really know if they were going to take him had Philly not jumped ahead. And I'm sure Philly probably thought they were. But, right now we don't know that. It's something that would be interesting, really interesting to find out. If we can ever find that out. I don't know if we'll ever get the truth on that. But I asked Pat Moore, their assistant director of college scouting, who just spoke to us a few minutes ago. I said, basically you went into this draft with probably your three or four of your biggest needs were tackle, safety, inside linebacker, and then maybe the fourth being corner. How did you guys manage to, fill 3 of those needs? And he said, look, the tackle board was obviously stacked, so they were able to get one there. And without saying it, he essentially said that, they went a little bit for need. I'm paraphrasing here, but the quote was Goody was able to get the best players at those positions. He didn't say the best players available. He said the best players at those positions, which Ted Thompson would tell you, well, that's just the way it worked out. But in this case, Brian Gutekunst is the one who actually made it work out that way.
That is interesting.
What do you think they ultimately do at the linebacker positions? Because it seems like they like Isaiah McDuffie. I guess we don't know if Hafley does. The previous defensive regime certainly did. I would assume that Matt LaFleur would also have been in that camp. Obviously, Quay Walker. But now with Edgerrin Cooper, like, who's playing? Because when Hafley talked, it seemed like that other linebacker is only playing 15 to 20% of the time. And I'm guessing you're not spending a second-round pick on somebody who's doing that.
Right. No, I would assume McDuffie is the third of the three. But hey, look, McDuffie played for him, right, at Boston College, if I'm remembering that right, played for Halfley. So there's obviously,
correct.
Not only a connection, but I mean, this is a guy he recruited. These are college players. The relationships are pretty intimate, right? Different, it's not so transactional. So obviously he's got some affection for McDuffie. But yes, I would assume, and I believe Pat Moore was asked about playing both Cooper and Quay Walker together, and he suggested that yes, that's definitely something that they would explore doing. Now, Cooper's obviously got to be ready to play. He's got to be able to pick it up. He's got to be able to figure everything out before we can just say, well, he's going to play, 95% of the snaps or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, I would assume that, Isaiah McDuffie probably goes to ILB 3 instead of ILB 2 at this point.
I've got two questions here for you. Do you think that the story at the end of this draft could be it was basically a Jeff Halfley style of draft? They got the new defensive coordinator and they gave him the pieces he thought was necessary. And do you think the first two defensive picks being guys that are prototypically up the middle is something that Jeff Halfley is looking for and to improve on the defense?
Well, I think, look, anytime, and we've seen this in multiple sports, not just football, anytime a new coach or a new coordinator or new head coach, position coach, whatever is hired, usually the coordinator, head coach level, that guy is given players to help him. And you probably sit there and say, well, why didn't they do that for the last guy or whatever, right? I mean, like, that's just sort of the natural tendency in sports is, you're going to hire a new coach, new coordinator, but you also have to give them some players too, right? And I mean, I don't think this is as drastic as, when Dom Capers came in 2009 and they had to get a nose tackle and an edge rusher in the first round. It's not as dramatic as that. I've said before on the station, on the air, that players are more adaptable and schemes are more adaptable now than they were back then. It was just so different. But I do think that, yes, this will be looked at as a draft that, and really an off season, where they had to dedicate themselves to fixing the defense. Now, we've seen off seasons like that before, right? This is not the first time that they've gone heavy early in the draft and with defensive players. But I do think it's a great point that, Jeff Halfley's influence, Jeff Halfley's system, what he wants, what he likes up the middle, certainly had to be a focus of these first two rounds. And we'll see, where it goes from here with a couple more picks today.
What do you think they could potentially be targeting? Not players necessarily, but positions with their two picks in the third round.
My guess is that this is the point where you filled those needs like we talked about. Now you probably just go with the best player, right? I mean, yeah, certainly, could they use another running back? Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to get a running back out of this draft. They probably need another offensive lineman in this draft, but it probably needs somebody on the defensive front. But honestly, at this point, I think you just go get what the best player you can get is, whether that's one of those positions or the other. There's going to be enough there that I don't necessarily think you have to say, all right, well, this next pick's going to be, a defensive tackle or whatever the case is.
Rob, appreciate the time, bud. I know it's a busy night. Again, apparently not as busy as I thought, but 4 picks tonight for the Packers. Still busy enough for you guys up there in Green Bay.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rob.
Rob Demovsky jumping on again. Check out all his great work from ESPN.com. And it was Rob's piece that I read this morning when it comes to Jordan Morgan that made me think that, and I know, and I'm still here, even though we know that the Packers look at him as a 4-position guy, even though Bill Belichick goes, oh, yeah, he's definitely a left tackle. When you see the run blocking stats, and I pair that with in my brain what I know and Chewy always says, teams like to run to the right. They run right-handed. Teams look for that road grader on that right side because of that. And you look at the run blocking things in terms of the no missed blocks as a blocker in college last year. It makes me think that right tackle, and again, pair that with Rob's reporting on Zach Tom and whether they, put him at guard or center, what have you. It just makes me think that Morgan could be that right tackle of the future.
Yeah, you certainly think that's how it might end up. I do think he's going to get a fair shot at left tackle. I think if you're spending pick 25 you have that guy with an idea of, hey, if he beats out Rasheed Walker, it's his job. If that works out that way, but you would think, as we stand here now, just with what we know, probably right tackle is the ending spot. That would be the safer bet. But I mean, guard's not out of the question. Goody said he can play all 4 positions. You typically wouldn't go guard that spot because if you wanted guard, you probably would look towards Graham Barton, since that is kind of where everyone thinks he's going to be the best. But hey, if they had a better grade on him at guard, then they have a better grade on him at guard. Jordan Morgan being. So to me, I'm excited about that pick. I think part of it is because that was the pick I predicted to be in terms of taking a tackle, not a D-back, like everyone else was saying. But to me, it's Jordan Love, it's the investment thing. They need help there. They want the offensive line to be strong and to be plentiful, and they're just adding guys who could do many things.
What's exciting to me, again, about Morgan, like they draft Edgerrin Cooper. Okay, I know where he's playing. They draft Javon Bullard. Okay, I know where he's playing. To me, there are legitimately 3 possibilities where he could end up. Because, again, you look at him as a 4-positional guy. One of those positions is locked up, and it's going to be locked up for the next few seasons because of how good Elton Jenkins is at left guard. But, yeah, maybe he beats out.
Interestingly enough, there he is. Justice, what's up, brother?
How we doing? Can you guys hear me all right?
We can hear you loud and clear, bud. Are you in the Tony Khan business? Are we selling? What are we selling here?
It's a Packers wrestling mask that I got in Mexico.
I mean, it is pretty sick. But again, oh man, look at! I didn't even see the side of it. Like, I thought it was just green and gold. No. I didn't realize the G was on the side of it.
We have an
sick,
illegal
man.
logo. Yeah.
when Justice and I were talking about today, he said, do I wear the wrestling mask? And I said, yes, always wear the wrestling mask. Gabe has a whole show dedicated to it, so it fits perfectly. But we're joined here by Justice Mosqueda. Some of you follow him on Twitter, follow his work at Acme Packing Company. I want you to just give your general overview before we get down to the nitty gritty.
The mask is too good.
It's great. It's my favorite part.
If I want to conduct this interview in a professional manner, I can't look at him. Like, I don't think I can look at him because I'm just going to fall in love with the mask over and over and over again.
Justice, give us your overview of the top 3 picks, kind of your 10,000-foot view of what you've seen the Packers do in the first 2 days of the draft.
They got the job done, right? They got 3 projected starters, I think. Cooper, to me, was the number 1 linebacker in the class. I know, like, the consensus board and stuff had similar things, especially since, there's a reason why Peyton Wilson is falling down the draft board right now, right? It's because of the injury history and all that stuff between his knee. He's had multiple injuries to his knee. He's had multiple injuries to his shoulder. Both of those things required surgery. He's overaged, all that stuff. And then Bullard, too, was a guy who I thought was if not safety 1, safety 2. And I'm not counting deJean in that, right? Like, that's a whole different conversation because you can count him as corner and different teams are going to value him differently and stuff like that. I thought it was between Newman and Bullard for, like, true safeties. Newman went a good bit before him. They picked Bullard, and then 2 picks later, the Buffalo Bills ended up picking Cole Bishop, who I think is a much worse safety. I mean, honestly, he's just kind of like a project. I watched him. I thought he was going to be a special teams guy, honestly. And then, everyone buys into him running a really fast 40 time. I didn't really see that translate onto the field. And now he ended up being a 2nd-round pick, which is still shocking to me. And then the first pick, right, Jordan Morgan, I mean, what was it? Tony Pauline reported today that the Washington Commanders were trying to trade back up into the first round to select him specifically. Jerry Jones had the whole thing where he went out to the press last night and was like, yeah, when we traded down from 24, here were the 4 players that we wanted. 3 of them were taken. One of them was Jordan Morgan, and they ended up being able to still keep Tyler Guyton. And then I was told the Baltimore Ravens were a team to highlight, underline, all that stuff for Jordan Morgan because they were the team that liked him enough to actually have their offensive line coach be the guy who at his pro day ran him through all the drills and stuff like that. And that was one reason why the Washington Commanders felt like they needed to trade up to 29, right? Because the Ravens held the 30th pick. So I know a lot of people have said, like, you look at the consensus draft board and he's a reach. If you look at all the offensive linemen who are tackles in this class, they've all been reaches compared to the consensus draft board, because I don't think people are valuing that position in the same way that NFL. Think about last draft, right? Like the pick after the Packers was Broderick Jones, and then that left the New York Jets high and dry at whatever it was, like 16, right? And it feels like every year we're just surprised that tackles go high, and it's like, that's the NFL. I think Morgan, the best way to talk about Morgan is I think he's going to be like the J.C. Treader of the tackle position for the team, in my opinion. I think he's going to get the early look at tackle. I don't know if it's going to be left or right, but I do think they're going to give him burn at the tackle position. He's going to be super solid, really good feet, good hands. He's not going to be much of a mover in the run game, which like you don't really need at the tackle position anyway, unless you're going to be running a whole ton of power stuff. He's going to be a great zone guy. He's going to be a super consistent pass protector. And, all those boxes kind of check what the Packers have been doing for the last 15 years.
Seeing as how they just took a linebacker and a safety in the second round, are the Packers actually valuing the middle part of their defense? Because, I don't know, it feels like that a lot of those positions, including linebacker, and I know they took Quay Walker a couple of years ago, but it seems like that part of the defense has been largely ignored over the last 10 to 15 years.
Well, they did spend a first-round pick on Quay and Darnell Savage. I just think some of those guys haven't panned out, right? Like, Darnell Savage didn't really turn out. I guess you could have said they could have done more last year at the safety position to kind of add more talent. I would agree with that. I would have thought they would have added a safety before Anthony Johnson Jr. in like the 7th round or whatever it was. But like at linebacker, you paid Devondre all that money and you gave Quay that first-round pick, right? So I don't know if they didn't value it, but now it seemed like the time where it was like, clearly, right? Like even going into day one of the draft, I don't think anyone thought that offensive line was as big of an issue as safety and linebacker, and they were able to, make 2 selections without having to trade up. Actually traded down and got 2 more draft picks, if you can believe it. They have 13 picks right now in the draft. They have, if they make every pick this weekend, they have 5 undrafted free agent rookie spots on their 90-man roster, if you can believe that. That's insane. It's going to be Mad Max for the back end of the roster and even like the practice squad this summer. It's going to be nuts. So I think they've checked the boxes on the major needs.
I heard Goody kind of talk about his stress about the lack of roster spots he had, and he also did say he wanted 13 or 14 picks. The one thing that has been a big conversation here on our YouTube page is the trade back. Well, let's start with the trade up to draft Cooper DeJean, followed by the trade back by the Packers, where they ended up taking Edgerrin Cooper. As we stand here now, obviously there's going to be a lot of information that comes out. Some of it we can trust, some of it we can't. Do you think he was honestly a factor there for the Packers to be drafted as maybe just a corner? Or do you think they kind of let us all believe, which is mainly just through mock drafts? Like, do you think that was a consideration? Do you think they got sniped on Cooper DeJean?
I do think they got sniped on Cooper DeJean.
Oh, wow.
The rumors from the NFL Network report earlier today, right, that the Packers were actively trying to move up. And then you see the cost it took some of these teams to move up. The Rams gave up 2 second-round picks to move up just a couple spots. I think the Falcons gave up a future third to move up like 6 spots in the second round. That's a crazy price. So I'm sure they looked at that and they were like, all right, well, we probably don't want to do that, right? And then, the Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman, probably the best general manager in the league just in terms of trades and transactions and stuff, just kicks down the door, goes right in front of you and takes a guy. Like, that stuff doesn't really happen by accident, right? Like, everyone kind of knows what everyone else needs and what everyone else wants. And that's why, like, I referenced the Washington Commanders thing earlier, right, about them wanting to trade up to 29 to take Jordan Morgan. It's because they knew Baltimore was interested at 30. I'm almost certain that Philadelphia did the same thing looking at Green Bay, and they're like, that's the team that we got to beat to the punch at Cooper DeJean, right? So I do think that they would consider him a safety. Even just listening to what, like, Goot said today about Bullard after he made the Bullard pick, he was like, one of the big things for us was just the versatility. Bullard in 2022 was basically the starting nickel at Georgia before he transitioned to safety and was an all SEC player there at that spot. And he made that as, a big deal for them. Cooper DeJean, he was a guy that, pre-draft, Goot had said that he's evaluated him as a cornerback, a safety, and a nickel at the next level. So I do think they probably would have played him at safety just because of how their team is constructed right now. And I do think that he was in consideration there. I don't think the medicals was a big deal for Cooper DeJean. A broken leg type of thing, like that's not really something, like bones come back stronger generally when you break them, right? It's when you get like weird stress fractures. Johnny Newton, the kid at the defensive lineman out of Illinois, the reason he dropped and the reason Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback at Alabama, dropped is they had a Jones fracture, which is like a stress fracture at the base of your pinky toe, basically. And that's an injury that usually pops up again at some point during your NFL career. And that's what led them to kind of dropping out of the first round.
Justice, I have been banging the drum tonight. Again, I don't think it's super important. I don't know if they actually do it, but I would not mind if the Packers took another wide receiver, especially one that has a lot of speed, if Christian Watson's hamstring issues continue. Just kind of an insurance policy on a wide receiver. Do you think that's possible? And is there anybody out there that could kind of fit that role of, oh, here's a speedster, kind of like when they got MVS in the middle rounds? Hey, speedster can run some 9 routes, take some tops off of defense. Is there anybody out there in this year's draft that could fit that, where they, again, it wouldn't obviously be a top investment, but still a nice little insurance policy?
Not like fast. Not like that fast, right? Most of those guys are already gone. But I think Jalen McMillan from Washington is an interesting guy. Javon Baker from Central Florida. And even Jermaine Burton, the kid out of Alabama who transferred out of, he was at Alabama and Georgia. I think all those guys are interesting. They brought in Burton on a pre-draft visit. They looked at Xavier Legette, the guy who went the 32nd pick to the Carolina Panthers. They brought him in on a pre-draft visit. So it at least looks like they're willing to entertain the wide receiver position. I think that if it comes down to a wide receiver with the group that they have right now, it has to be a guy who does Debo-ish stuff out of the backfield to kind of spell the big backs that they got right now, right? Like maybe we don't get Jalen Wright from Tennessee, right? The speedster running back out of the backfield, but we can have this receiver that can kind of do that a little bit on third downs and stuff like that. Or it's, to your point, I mean, you said it perfectly, Christian Watson insurance, right? That I think those are the kind of two archetypes that we're talking about at receiver right now.
Both the Bears and the Vikings made splashes. We can determine what we think about those now. But what was your take on what both of those teams did? I saw some of your tweets. It seems like you don't really love what the Vikings did. I think let's correct that. You love what the Vikings did because you don't think that's going to help their team win. But are we scared of the Bears? Are we scared of the other teams in the NFC?
No, I mean, the Bears added 2 players, and they were going to be good players, and they were pretty hard picks to mess up, right? I mean, you're picking first overall for a quarterback, and you're picking 9th in a draft where 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12 picks. So you're basically, picking a top 5 non-quarterback player there. That's pretty hard to bomb too, So they got Rome. I hate Rome because I'm an Oregon fan. He used to come into Twitter Spaces and threaten Oregon fans, telling them that he was going to come back next year and kick their ass again if they keep talking loud. So I'm tired
objectively,
of Rome.
Look, Justice. I know that again, as an Oregon fan, I'm sure that bothered you. Objectively, that's sick. That's cool. Objectively speaking, that's pretty sick.
That's why Bears fans are like, "Isn't this so cool, Caleb Williams in Rome?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it is pretty cool." And I just have to accept it and move on, and I can't give him the reaction, man. I cannot give him the reaction. But the Vikings, I mean, you didn't have a quarterback for 3 months, and you fumbled this. And everyone knows you didn't get your guy, and you're staring at us in the face, and you're telling us, J.J. McCarthy at 11, this was our plan the whole time. We know it wasn't. And they have, no – do you guys know how many picks next year they've already traded? They traded their second, I think it's second, third, and fourth round picks next year. They basically don't have a draft outside of the first round next year. It's nuts. They're all in on this year, which I guess makes sense because, rookie quarterback contract and Justin Jefferson's deal is going to come up real quick. But, yeah.
Vikings with 3 picks next year, a first and 2 fifths.
Go get them,
those are not real. Those are not real picks.
That is basically non-existing in the NFL draft.
Yeah, you got
Justice,
1 pick. You have 1 pick next year. Congrats.
Yeah. Justice, there is a lot of picks left here for the Packers to make. Who are some guys you think the Packers will be looking at when they come up on the board in the 3rd round? And who are guys that you, if you were Goody, would try and add to the roster right now?
So here's a couple guys who, at Acme Packing Company, we always do like the athletic threshold stuff, and we try to like narrow down our scope. In part because we're not a big operation, right? We can't go look at 600 prospects. So we're like, all right, what guys athletically are, kind of fit what the Packers want to do? And we've hit all 3 earlier today. I think a couple of those guys who are still on the board who I like, Christian Haynes, the UConn guard, he's really good. Just an absolute mauler. He played next to a guy who was like 240 pounds at center. He looks like a long snapper. It's absurd when you watch him. When he gets drafted, the highlights are going to be hilarious because he's got 100 pounds of the dude next to him. And UConn's down 50 points, and he's just road grading guys. You're just digging them out. Dominic Cooney.
I like him.
Dominic Cooney out of Kansas. He was their left tackle. I think he's going to transition to guard. He's another guy who's interesting to me. Kind of hits all the athletic stuff that they want. I still think the Packers could add 1 more offensive lineman in the mix. And, it wouldn't shock me if that ends up becoming the starting right guard and Myers is just on the bench. And, he's an interior swingman or something like that in the last year of his deal. Wingo, Mekhi Wingo, the LSU defensive tackle, love him. Little bit undersized, super athletic. Got a non-major injury down the stretch in the season, so I think people have forgotten about him a little bit. But he wore number 18 for LSU, which is a big deal in terms of that's basically like a captain's patch, right, for those guys. And he dominated FSU to start the season, in a good-on-good matchup. The non-lineman I'll bring up, I guess at this point, is Kyrie Jackson, the cornerback out of Oregon, which. I'm bringing up an Oregon guy. He was a transfer out of Alabama. Long guy, ball skills, all that stuff. He was the one guy who wasn't getting toasted to shreds in those Washington matchups. So that's a bonus. I think, Jackson, if the cornerback class was average, is probably drafted already, right? But because it's so good and it's so deep, I think he's hanging on the board. So those are some guys that I would keep an eye on.
Justice, also want to know, since you are wearing the wrestling mask, are you disappointed you did not go? Tonight was also the first night of the WWE draft over on SmackDown. Are you disappointed you weren't selected with one of those picks? And are you hoping to go on night 2 when Monday Night Raw comes around in a few days?
How dare you? I'm a AEW loyalist. I've never seen a show, but my semi buddy Tony Khan, I saw his whole gimmick. He's wearing the neck brace in the in the draft room. I DM'd him today. I said,
I'm so glad. Okay, I'm so glad we get to talk about this now. So glad. So, for those who missed it, so Tony Khan is the owner of AEW. He is also has a role with the Jacksonville Jaguars because his dad, Shad Khan, owns the team. Tony, to close out the AEW show they had on Wednesday night on TBS, took a pile driver, a spike pile driver move. To sell that move, he has been wearing a neck brace the last 2 days that you've been able to see in the draft room for the Jaguars. He did an interview while wearing the neck brace on NFL Network today. He is selling like his neck is injured after taking a move, which is one of my favorites. It is the dumbest, most fun wrestling thing that could have possibly happened. And tip of the cap to Tony Khan.
Just a great bit. And that's why I was salute the man today.
I was going to say, coming from you, who's currently wearing a wrestling mask, that does fit your whole style there. Justice, when we look at sort of the middle of the defense for the Packers, do you think that's something that how do I want to put this? That the team views as a big issue and a big thing that they're trying to emphasize with the new Jeff Hafley defense? Or is it just, we've got needs, we're plugging players in?
I think it's more we got needs, we're plugging players in. I mean, they're just such big needs that they didn't address in free agency, right?
Yeah.
And now at this point, I mean, there's still needs, like they could add another corner, they could add another running back. They need bodies on the offensive line. Like, you could use another linebacker. But I think early on they kind of identified where they need to be to draft guys who they can plug in and have them be like day one starters at this point. The defense isn't necessarily built in a way where, the middle of it has to be great. Like even when you hear Hafley talk about it, or Kobe Wooden when he was on like the pre-draft show for like the Packers YouTube page and stuff like that, every defensive lineman is saying like, our whole job now is just penetrate, get to the backfield, spill everything to the sideline, and then from there it's just run and chase football, right? And hopefully we get some sacks along the way and stuff like that. So I don't think that the spine of the defense is really going to get tested because there's going to be so much damn movement with those guys between twists, stunts, whatever it may be, and that's something that Edgerrin Cooper was really good at A&M. Like they didn't really play him like a traditional true stack linebacker. They were always doing weird stuff with him, whether it's, apexing him, kind of splitting the slot and the rest of the formation, or having him do stunts and stuff like that. Like he's going to be good in that role.
Justice, appreciate you, buddy. Mm-hmm. Appreciate you sticking with the gimmick throughout the entire. Is that comfortable? Is the mask comfortable? I've always wanted to know. I've never worn a luchador mask.
How's it smell in there?
Is it machine washable, dry clean only?
Yeah. I haven't used it enough. That smell has become an issue. Don't know about the washing situation. I will say, I feel like your third day of podcasting in this thing becomes more comfortable. I haven't figured out how to drink things with it on, which is the main issue.
Wait, so is it just because like it sticks out like over the nose, so it's like it's a little more funky when you have to? Because again, the mouth. Okay. Strange angle that you got to drink with it. So, like, bottles only? Yeah. Because I feel the bottle would be the only thing that wouldn't.
Earlier, and it didn't work, so.
I think it's got to be thinner. It's got to be like a soda.
Yeah. Beers it is.
It's got to be a straw or like a glass bottle. Yeah. It's that or I pop
Justice,
the top. I mean, I have no options.
Justice, tell everybody where they can find your work here before you head out.
All great stuff.
Yeah. AcmePackingCompany.com. We're writing about the draft all week, and we're covering the Packers 24/7, 365. So check us out there.
If you have any questions, because again, it has come up a lot tonight during our show. I feel like it's becoming more and more of a thing. And you, of course, Justice, you've been all over this. You do have a pretty good explainer over at AcmePackingCompany.com about relative athletic score, what the Packers' thresholds are for different positions, why that's been important to them. So, again, check that out. That was posted earlier this month. If anybody has any questions on that, you did a great job explaining that for everybody. So thank you for the time, my friend, and enjoy reading your stuff over at AcmePackingCompany.com.
Yes, sir. Whenever you guys need me.
Justice Mosqueda jumping on with us here on ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night. We are in the 80s. We are getting closer and closer to the Packers' final two picks of the night. They have 88 and 90 overall. The Rams are on the board after Tip Ryman just went, the tight end out of Illinois. We'll break down who could potentially go for the Packers coming up next. It is ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night.
You're listening to Draft Night coverage on ESPN Wisconsin.
From the biggest plays on the court to the comments made in the locker room after, an in-depth recap of every Bucs game in 6 minutes. No more, no less. Bucs in 6 provides game recaps for every game. Hear the high-flying dunks from Giannis.
Puts it on the floor, spins down the lane, and plunges it through.
Or the deep threes from Dame.
Dame time has arrived with 107.
Bucs in 6 on the Bucs Plus Audio Network. Find it now on Bucs.com/plus or on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts.
All you have is one chance after an accident, one decision on who to call, one shot to get the help you need. Don't waste it on the one offer you get from your insurance company. Make the one call to Gruber Law Offices. It's the only one you'll need to make. Call us today. Gruber Law Offices. One call, that's all.
Protect your dream home with American Family Insurance. And you can weather any storm. You'll also save up to 25% by bundling home, auto, and life. American Family Insurance. Get a quote. Find an agent at amfam.com.
Products not available in every state. Discounts may not apply to all coverages on an auto or home policy. Discounts do not apply to life insurance policies. Visit amfam.com to learn how discounts may apply to you. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating companies, American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
You ever have one of those days when you just couldn't come up with the right answer? Well, I know one answer that pretty much solves all problems. Ice cream. Yeah, it's the answer to everything, right? And right now, at Quick Trip, our rich, creamy, straight from our dairy, Nature's Touch 1-gallon pails of ice cream are just $4.99. Yeah, now that's an answer worth digging into. Come on, be a problem solver. Bring home some fresh, delicious Nature's Touch ice cream, only from Quick Trip.
Good Karma Brands is proud to be an equal opportunity employer. Our policy is to provide equal opportunity employment, development, and advancement to all current and potential teammates. If you are an organization that maintains a job bank, provides employment information, or gives job referrals, you may request to be placed on the station's mailing list for future career opportunities. To learn more about careers at Good Karma Brands, please email careers@goodkarmabrands.com.
Woo! Hey, this is Ben Brust from Kyle Brust and Ortman on ESPN Wisconsin. People can't stop screaming about the Screamin' Sicilian frozen pizza, and no wonder. There's plenty to scream about, like the buttery stone-fired crust, secret recipe tomato sauce, mounds of whole milk mozzarella, and tons of premium toppings. Find Screamin' Sicilian in your local grocer's freezer and find out for yourself why Sport called Screamin' Sicilian's Holy Pepperoni frozen pizza the best of the best. Screamin' Sicilian, taste what all the screamin' is about.
Bandana? Check. Boots? Check. Gloves? Check. As a motorcycle rider in Wisconsin, you may go to great lengths to protect your image. Just be sure you're protecting yourself, too. Wear a Department of Transportation-approved helmet. Perform safety checks on your motorcycle. Know the traffic laws and don't take risks. Motorists and motorcyclists can work together to achieve zero preventable deaths on Wisconsin roads. Zero in Wisconsin. Together, we can save lives. Learn more at zeroinwisconsin.gov. Wisconsin DOT.
As you're putting your spring calendar together, we'd love to have you join us Saturday, May 18th for Mark Osiki's 6th annual Casting for Kids Fishing Tournament to support the American Family Children's Hospital, UW Carbone Cancer Center. We're on the Madison Chain of Lakes early, then back at the Alliant Energy Center for 2:30 happy hour, dinner, and live and silent auctions with cool autographed hockey items, guided tours, and a brand new fishing boat. There's even more on our website, castingforkids.org. Help us help the kids, castingforkids.org.
This is Draft Night coverage on ESPN Wisconsin.
Wisconsin draft night as we close in on the Packers' final 2 picks of the evening. Still have 8 more picks tomorrow after making 5, presumably if they don't trade out of the 3rd round. But again, I feel like they slid back. I feel pretty confident that they're going to take these 2 picks because as much as Goody loves having those picks and said, hey, I'd love to have 13 or 14. He's at 13 now. And if he gets any more and makes all the picks, as Justice Mosqueda from Acme Packing Company just pointed out to us, that means they have 5 spots available for undrafted free agents on their 90-man roster.
Yeah, that's not a lot of room here. And the fact that the Packers haven't moved up to this point kind of tells you that either they tried to and it didn't work, or they were fully intent on making all 5 picks. They could make more movements when it comes to tomorrow, but to me, I think they're pretty much done unless they try and get another pick here in this 3rd round. There's been some interesting names, some recognizable names. Blake Corum is now a member of the Rams. Christian Haynes, who Justice talked about how he was playing next to a long snapper, basically, and mauling guys. He is a member of the Seahawks now. And then there's a couple other people, Cooper Beebe, Trevin Wallace, were named, Junior Colson, were all names that the Packers had been tied to, be it visit or be it just simply meeting their athletic thresholds. You mentioned the thresholds. I've been looking at that consistently here. And a lot of these best available players do fit what the Packers are looking for. So a stay here and pick does make sense. What the pick is something that's going to tell a totally different story. There's running backs available here. We've seen a couple of them go off the board. There are a couple edge players with Austin Booker and Isaac out of Penn State as well. So it'll be interesting to see which side of the ball. Mekhi Wingo, Justice just mentioned as well. He wore that 18. Devontae Walker, another guy who fits the threshold.
So you mentioned Devontae Walker. That's my new guy.
Yeah.
Devontae Walker is my guy because I've talked about Christian Watson insurance tonight, and he is the last one that could provide that. He ran a 4.36 40. What did Christian Watson run at the combine a couple of years ago? 4.36 40. So that to me would be the insurance of the last truly fast person that could potentially be out there. And if you just tell me Devontae Walker went, I'm going to slap you.
No. I want to tie him even more to MVS. The first things here on the Mel Kiper big board, Walker has dropped some passes on tape. So,
hey, look, you're not getting somebody that fast in the third round unless there are some issues, Joshy. If he was 4.36 and could catch, guess where he's going?
First round.
Yeah, you bet. You got to, sometimes you got to coach some of these guys up. All right.
He is 6'2", and I've seen a little bit of him because I spent some time watching Drake May just because I was interested in him throughout the season. He was a guy that kind of showed up multiple times. He looks a little bit smaller than he actually is. So 6'2", 193. I mean, we were talking about Xavier Worthy, who was 5'10", 165.
Correct.
That's a totally different body type there at the wide receiver.
I mean, again, and whether he also ran a 4.21, slightly faster, but still, again, if you're looking for that Christian Watson type, again, he's not quite as big as Christian, but he runs nobody really is that's able to run as fast as Christian Watson does. But I want that insurance at wide receiver.
I would be totally in favor of the pick. Goody mentioned, I've mentioned it here before, competition. Clearly, Goody views this as a young man's game. They are possibly moving on from somebody who's still quite young, despite being like a 9-year NFL vet, in Kenny Clark. And the adding competition thing, I think, is something he really believes in. We've seen it in the wide receiver room. And so far, the results have been tremendous. Bull Melton, a guy who the first time he emerged, I remember myself saying, like, yeah, nice, he's not going to be a factor. And then Bull Melton just kept showing up.
He just kept being a factor.
and I don't think that's an accident. I think that what we saw from not only Jaden Reed, but we also saw from the other wide receivers is that type of competition in that room makes things better. So adding another guy here, especially with the uncertainty involving, and who knows what happened when he went to Madison to have that old hammy checked out. Maybe they said, hey, this just is a thing he's going to deal with forever. We don't really have an answer. That's possible. So insurance here makes sense. It would be an exciting pick, and a pick I think probably our friends here on the YouTube comments who are Goody haters would probably like, because more than an offensive tackle, a wide receiver that's fun.
I don't think we gave enough run to Bo Melton.
Yeah.
Because, again, here's the start of Bo Melton's career. He's with Seattle for 14 weeks, does not play in any of those games. Packers end up picking him up. He's inactive weeks 16 and 17 of the 2022 season. Last year, did not play for the first 11 weeks. Finally was activated. Did nothing. 0 catches. Then did not play. Last 4 games of the year. Oh, he finally has his first career catch. 1 for 7. Cool. Then he has 4 for 44, 6 for 150 and a touchdown, and 5 for 62 to close out the regular season. Didn't do much in the postseason, but like in a run where the Packers needed it because they lost to Tampa Bay and had to win out to make the playoffs. Yep. Suddenly, Bo Melton shows up with over 200 yards receiving in the last 3 games.
And we mentioned the measurables from Devontae Walker and the possible issues. Bo Melton had a 9.24 RAS. He ran a 4.34 40. He was just small, 5'10", 189. So that's a guy who, if he was taller, had those gifts, and maybe some of those numbers do come down, but he was the 10th rated in terms of athleticism wide receiver in that draft cast. So the fact that he emerged and made himself useful to the Packers at a time when they really needed someone to be, because of the sliding doors of injuries that happened, like, that's a guy that, if you add to that, I think you put Jordan Love mainly in a great position. You put those other receivers in a good spot.
Packers in the hole to make their pick. The San Francisco 49ers are now picking at 23. They have traded up with Philadelphia, so they are on the board right now. Also worth noting that the last 3 picks have all come from the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah.
Blake Corum, Roman Wilson, the wide receiver, Zach Zinter, the offensive guard.
Zach Zinter was a guy the Packers did have in for a visit. He had some injury issues. I think Justice said it was that stress fracture in the toe that was a piece of it. So
it did not sound comfortable.
No, that's not the toes are nothing you really want to mess with, because you need them to do everything. Walking being one, running being the next.
Balance, which from my understanding, haven't ever done it, but my understanding is important for an offensive lineman. You want good balance.
I do wonder if there is a potential here for one of these offensive linemen that the Packers might like going off the board. I would be interested to see if they do go back to the defense.
How do you think the Packers felt about Dominic Puny? Because he just went.
He was pretty high on their board. I would imagine he was another guy Justice mentioned, a threshold guy and a good tester. So I would imagine, we talked about Justice said they do think he got sniped for Cooper DeJean. I would imagine that trade up that we just saw was probably because there was belief among some of those teams that might be an option for the Packers here in the 3rd round.
So the 49ers go up and get the tackle out of Kansas. The Packers are now on deck. Cowboys go at 24 in the 3rd round. Packers have 25 in the 3rd round, the 88th overall pick. And then they have the Buffalo Bills pick coming up just 3 picks after that. So going to be fast and furious for the Packers as the Cowboys pick is already in. Packers went defense both times in the 2nd round, waiting to see what they do here in round number 2.
I feel like I need to update myself on some of these picks that have happened, because we've been guessed to guess.
Oh, yes. We had Jason, then we had Rob, then we had Justice joining the program. And as much as we spent talking about the other teams in the division, they don't have many picks today.
No.
We spent a lot of time in, hey, look at what the Bears did. Vikings maybe have their quarterback. The Lions, kings of the division, made big splashes. And it almost felt like, okay, the Lions probably made those splashes, and I'm guessing those deals were done, and they decided to announce them the eve of the draft to make their fan base excited because, well, they don't have a ton of picks.
Yeah, so the offensive line position does have a bunch of guys that I think can be targets. There are a couple centers. Obviously, Tanner Bortolini, the Wisconsin grad, hasn't gone. He destroyed the combine, was one of the stories from the offensive line that came out of there. Cedric Van Pran Granger from Georgia, another Georgia guy, viewed as probably a true center. Bortolini, Packers, Badgers fans will say, please don't make him snap the ball, put him at a guard position, please. And then there's the name I mentioned earlier today in Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. He's also another relative athletic scorer type of guy that fits their needs there. So, I would say Puny was probably in the consideration here, but I don't think the Packers felt pressed at the offensive line position when you break down the guys still left here that fit their threshold needs.
Yeah, there's still plenty of players left on the board, kind of the way that Jason and Rob have kind of talked about. The example they used, because it was something that Goody talked about when they drafted Jaden Reed last year, when they traded down and thought, hey, there's a number of guys that we like that have this, draft grade that we've given them. If we trade back, get a couple of picks, we know we're going to get one of these 3 guys. And they ended up with Jaden Reed, who certainly worked out for the Packers. Still waiting to see what the pick for the Dallas Cowboys is going to be.
We got
and then
inside
the Packers
linebacker from Notre Dame, Marist Lufsu. I do not know that name. That is the first time I've seen that name. We are getting to the region. As much as I inhale the draft and take it in, there are some guys going off where it's like, maybe I've seen that name a couple times, but we're starting to get to the region. And it was talked about by people who pay attention to the draft that when it got to the 50s, that was kind of the breaking point for a lot of teams of where the true top 50 picks were. Goody talked about how 5 picks in the top 100 to him means a potential of 5 guys that go in the top 50 of the draft. So the names here are going to probably get kind of wild because rounds through 4 through 6 are kind of interchangeable in its flavor and desire and needs. So you're going to see some names here that are probably not the highest on the draft board for Mel Kiper that you can find on ESPN, or the names that you've seen in some of the mocks that have been done yet.
So the Packers, once the pick is officially announced in Detroit, will be on the clock as the Cowboys are taking an inside linebacker. The great part now, and Justice had mentioned this when he joined us, Justice Mosqueda from Acme Packing Company, the Packers are kind of freed up right now at 88 and 91. The major needs have been addressed. If there's a corner there that you like, go ahead and take him. But it's good to see at least... It felt like to me that they were fairly comfortable with the corners that they had. Basically running that position back from a year ago with Valentine, bringing back Valentine, and signing a big money deal for Nixon. It seemed like they were pretty comfortable at the position. That's not to say that they won't add one here if there's one they really like, but it's just kind of, okay, positions have been filled. Who's truly the best player available? Let's go in that direction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they decide to go with kind of the positions we think they could add some talent, add some competition to, or if it's just a guy, if it's an edge guy, say, and you go, yeah, that's just them adding talent, trying to get better, trying to take a shot on a guy that they think could develop into something more than he's viewed at. As we sit here right now, this is kind of Goody, make your hay type plays. You taking care of needs. Now show us. Oh, I know who the Packers took.
Do you want to spoil it?
I mean, should we?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's kind of fun.
Who we got?
We have Packers drafting USC.
Okay.
Running back.
Okay.
Marshawn Lloyd.
All right. This was, again, one of those areas where it's not a big need, just kind of a sneaky need, because you're bringing back A.J. Dillon on a 1-year deal. And yes, you did have the big running back that you signed with Josh Jacobs, but at the same time, you still need to have 2. I think most teams feel comfortable when they have 2 complementing backs. And Marshawn Lloyd, I don't know if he's that complimentary back at 5'8", 220 pounds. He's still going to be maybe that kind of very similar to what they already have, but clearly feel like they really liked him and end up going with Marshawn Lloyd out of USC.
He was an 8.92 in relative athletic score, ran a 4.4. These numbers are blending here as we get later. 4.48. He does fit the thresholds. He was a name that people thought could be a position here, but the Packers like big backs, so seeing a 220-pound guy go off the board to them doesn't really shock me at all. It is funny here when I look back March 2nd. I do see people, when this got tweeted out from Math Bomb, Kent Lee Platt, the first comment here is Packer. So back on March 2nd, somebody had tied this guy, which makes sense when you look at like A.J. Dillon and clearly the size that the Packers prefer at that position. A 220-pound running back makes perfect sense.
7.1 yards per rush last year in the Lincoln Riley RPO system at USC. From the Beast, again, from Dane Brugler over at The Athletic. Overall, Lloyd doesn't have the profile of a high-volume back, but he can spark an NFL offense with his mix of patience, burst, and promise as a pass catcher. His tape gives me flashbacks of a thicker version of Duke Johnson when he was coming out of Miami. So if the Packers believe into that promise of a pass catcher, that's where this can make sense. And being a little bit of a bigger back maybe they feel good about him. If he comes in on a passing situation, it's not necessarily he's always going out. If he can catch on to pass pro quickly, being a bigger back, he could be an asset in that area as well.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd's definitely a guy we saw. Caleb Williams was a star. They put USC on the TV a lot. He was a guy that made pretty big impacts for them. As much as we saw Caleb Williams run in circles and throw bombs down the field to wide open guys, Marshawn Lloyd was a consistent contributor for them. So it is interesting here. I don't know if they quite view him as the guy in waiting for Josh Jacobs, especially with not being typically thought of as the bell cow. But another weapon for Jordan Love, another person who's going to be added to that offense. So the names mentioned with him are not really high-grade names. But back when Aaron Jones was taken, that wasn't a guy that people were thinking, well, this guy could be a top 10 back in the NFL. So I'm going to reserve judgment on some of those comparisons because you hear Duke Johnson, you don't necessarily get excited. You see Ty Johnson from other people, it's like, okay. But a third-round pick means they've got a plan to use this running back.
Absolutely. And look, he doesn't need to be that feature back right away. Yeah. That's what Josh Jacobs is for. Again, is he the back in waiting? I don't know, but he seems like he could potentially be a good complementary piece. One of 5 FBS running backs to average more than 7 yards per carry, and over 20% of his carries resulted in a 10-plus yard gain. So, again, that's one way to average 7 yards per carry, as he did at USC this past season. Packers are already on deck at 91. The picks have been coming fast and furious here late in the third round. It looks like
I forgot about that.
ESPN2 is like, hey, we got to get this. Let's get this thing on the road. So the Packers taking Marshawn Lloyd, Tyke Smith, the safety out of Georgia, ends up going to Tampa, and the Cardinals pick is currently being announced with pick number 90. And it looks like, again, I doubt the Packers go and leave this spot, but Elijah Jones, cornerback out of Boston College, just went right before the Packers' final pick here. Looks like we are ultimately going to make all 5 picks in the top 3 rounds for the Packers, which I think a week ago, if you told me that a week ago, Josh, it would have shocked me. Mm-hmm. Not as shocking after hearing Brian Gutekunst talk in his pre-draft press conference on Monday.
Yeah, the 13 or 14 picks, we talked about subterfuge. We made Alex Strouf spell it what is now hours ago. I hope he enjoyed his fish fry that he went and had. The fact that the Packers stayed at these picks plays into the 5 picks in the top 100, means you get 5 guys in the top 50 of your board. If there wasn't a move up and they were rumored to try to move up, you kind of felt that after that first pick went off the board and it was a trade back that got them there, that the Packers were just going to stand pat and kind of take what came to them. They clearly felt good about these 5 picks for them to stay where they are. So as we stand here now, it seems like Goody has kind of gotten what he had hoped for when he set out for this draft. We talked about trades. We talked about the amount of ammo they had to be aggressive. And it seems like maybe other than the Cooper DeJean pick that we need to consider possibly they got sniped on, the Packers are coming out of this day, the second day of the draft of the second and third rounds, with guys they think are going to pretty much be contributors from day one in some form or fashion.
Packers pick is in for the 91st overall selection, which means they will indeed be making all their picks today. Did trade back a little bit earlier in the second round to get some draft capital, some additional draft capital tomorrow, meaning they will have 8 picks. But it looks like tonight is going to be wrapping up for the Green Bay Packers rather shortly. We will pass along that pick once we have it.
Where do you think it is?
So again, I've been kind of pushing for the wide receiver. I would love Walker here. But there's a name that you, and again, that even when Strouf was here, continue to bring up, and he's still out there. And that's TJ Tampa at cornerback out of Iowa State. I think it feels like Tampa could certainly be the guy here. I mean, if we were talking about him potentially as that late second round guy, and now he's still available to you in the late third, maybe he ends up being the guy.
Interestingly enough, he's not on the threshold boards, but that doesn't mean he can't be picked, because famously Jaden Reed was not a guy that was viewed as a Packer pick going into the draft, and they came out with him. So far, every pick has been featured on this threshold board. I'm thinking there's another offensive lineman here before the draft kind of evens out for the Packers. Obviously, they still have, at this point, 11. How many picks have they made? 4?
So they've made 4.
So they got 10 more picks. 9 more picks?
9 more picks, yeah. So 8 tomorrow. Still the pick is in. We just don't know who it is yet here to close out.
And I'm checking all my sources here, and I don't have anybody putting out the leak yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen the leak. Like, the pick's been in the entire commercial break for ESPN.
Oh, wow. We got the pick.
Survey says
Mizzou linebacker Tyron Hopper. This is a name that I'm going to have to Google, because when I check the threshold boards, I don't see a Hooper anywhere on here. I didn't even know Mizzou necessarily had a linebacker going at that spot. So I Google here.
So Tyron Hooper, he was ranked as the 11th off-ball linebacker by Dane Brugler over at The Athletic in his Beast, a fifth-year senior out of Mizzou. He had him as a potential 5th-round pick. 6 feet, 1 inch, 228 pounds, 23 years old, ran a 4.68 40 for Mizzou.
That one is the first puzzling pick for me. Not that I'm saying, who the hell is this guy? I had just mentioned for a lot of the picks here in this range, it was going to start turning to who is this guy? And a lot of people had him graded lower. So I'm not surprised to see he is graded lower. I'm surprised that it's another linebacker. Apparently, Quay Walker or Isaiah McDuffie clearly aren't part of the future for the Green Bay Packers. It has to be one of them at this point, because if you're investing this much at this rate into this position, either he's not going to play linebacker, which seems unlikely for a guy who's 6'1", 231, or the Packers think that that position is not as solved as we thought initially with Isaiah McDuffie and then Edgerrin Cooper with the first pick in the second round for them.
Bottom line from the Beast, overall, Hopper needs to be more consistent at the point of attack and as a finisher. Again, join the club.
Yeah.
But he is a fast-flowing athlete with pursuit skills and blitzing talent to find a home in the NFL. He projects as a run-and-chase rotational linebacker with the skill set for special teams.
That is interesting to me, Gabe. What's your initial reaction here now that you've read about him in the Beast? You've seen his RAS score not be the highest up there. He's not a guy in the threshold board. And the Packers have 4 inside linebackers now.
So to me, again, taking him, this seems, when I read the sentence, projects as a run-and-chase rotational linebacker with a skill set for special teams, I would assume that McDuffie is the odd man out.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that for sure. It just seems to be the safe assumption based on the investments that they made in Quay Walker. This one seems to me to be the 15 to 20% guy. If he's a rotational linebacker, that's where he projects. Again, not to say maybe he gets better and goes, but in competition is going to breed whatever it breeds at the inside linebacker spot. Taking another off-ball linebacker, I guess is what we have to say, because it's not an inside linebacker. Mm-hmm. They're not in a 3-4 anymore. They're in a 4-3. So taking another off-ball linebacker in the 3rd round is very curious to me, because I think you could have found somebody that maybe plays more than 15 to 20% of the snaps. At least that's the hope.
Yeah, you'd think that when you're taking a draft pick in the top 3 rounds, that a guy's going to play more than just 15 to 20% of the snaps. Maybe that means they are planning to make it sort of more rotational there. Maybe they view him interchangeable, maybe with like a box safety sort of guy. The run and chase thing maybe means that. This one I'm having a hard time. I'm looking here because I had the missed tackles rate. Hooper wasn't even mentioned as part of one of those guys. We got Tommy Eichenberg, Trevor Wallace,
Tyron Hopper.
Hopper, what did I call him?
Hopper.
Sorry. So he wasn't even really talked about this high, which isn't that shocking. This one,
I mean, you had mentioned once you got past 50, it kind of that's when it gets that got jumbled for a lot of these for a lot of general managers.
Yes, it's less that it's a pick I don't know. It's more of that's an interesting position to make this sort of investment in.
Correct.
For me.
That's where I'm at. I mean, look, again, I'm with you with that Tyrone Hopper. Maybe he ends up being great, but that means that one of the picks you made here tonight on day 2, one of them has to be a 20% guy.
You would think so?
Like, unless. And Chewy did bring this up because one of the things that Jeff Hafley had mentioned was effort.
Yeah.
Effort. And Chewy thought that maybe he was talking about Quay Walker.
Yeah.
And maybe this ends up being, I was asking for insurance and maybe the Packers can still get somebody like that in the 4th round. Again, I'm big on Walker, the wide receiver from UNC, as insurance for Christian Watson. Maybe Hopper is Quay Walker hustle insurance.
That's I'm looking here.
Look, it's a stretch. Is it a stretch? What I'm saying is absolutely a stretch. I'm trying to make it make sense in my head.
It's 9:59, and we are fully in stretch mode here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm looking here at the YouTube comments. His highlights looked good. Well, that's good. I'm glad the best plays they had for him looked good.
If the highlights look bad, I would have been concerned.
I see a what the heck? Why would they go LB and not take Peyton Wilson? To me, Peyton Wilson sliding is not a mistake. It's clearly the medicals were not what
shoulders.
Not only the Packers didn't like, but other teams, because people were putting him in the top of the 2nd round, and now we're at the bottom of the 3rd, and he still hasn't come off the board here. So to me, that's a medicals issue. Not much you can say about it other than the Packers are traditionally conservative when it comes to injuries. So if they got a guy that they have a red flag on, he just simply gets taken off the board, be it for better or for worse.
Man, but again, this is Goody in the 3rd round, right? Like, what are we doing in the 3rd round if we don't have something where we're kind of scratching our heads a little bit?
The picks were too close, and Goody just had to make one. He knew these were coming for like 25 picks. It didn't surprise him that he had to make a 2nd pick in the 3rd round.
I think he had just put his feet up. All right, boys, done for the night. Somebody get me a high life. Wait, we're on the board again already?
Just take one of those guys up there. That'll do the trick. I don't think that was the approach.
Just got a dart in his hand, just firing it at a wall. All right. Looks like that's what we're taking. That's where we're going with Tyrone Hopper. So again, Tyrone Hopper, the final Packer that gets drafted tonight. Jalen McMillan, who is a wide receiver that Justice Mosqueda had mentioned, goes right after him to Tampa Bay. The wide receiver out of Washington. They had plenty of talented wide receivers for the Washington Huskies last season.
I am reaching out to Jason Wilsey to see if he wants to join us here before the end, because the draft is coming to a close here. It is 10 p.m. Thank you to everybody who stuck along with us and watched, commented, all that stuff. True sickos here with us.
Look, we talked a little bit about this on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning. Yep. There are a lot of options for you to be watching the draft. ESPN2, ABC, NFL Network, all the different sidecast options that are out there as well. Like last night for the 1st round, a lot of people tuning into our stuff. And last night you could throw in from the Pat McAfee show things that they did. We truly appreciate you joining us, sticking around, having fun with some of the guests that we have, some of the stupid jokes that we made. So we certainly appreciate you understanding all the options that you have and joining us as we just have some fun breaking down the Packers 5 draft picks.
This is a comment I do agree with from John here on YouTube, saying, I would have thought they would address defensive tackle by now. I do as well. Maybe the Kenny Clark contract is something they're still working on, trying to figure out, be it an extension or whatever at this point. It is a little confusing that the date passed where they could make those moves and open up a little bit of space in terms of salary cap. But the Packers are salary cap solvent. They're in a plenty good position. They have plenty of money to spend. Clearly, they're going to spend money on all these draft picks that they've taken here. And I would say they're probably not done adding players, be it UDFAs or be it guys that kind of come up June 1, the date that you start to see names pop up. But there's not holes on this team anymore. Really, places you look at a glaring issue. We have questions about Devontae Wyatt. Is he going to be a contributor? Carl Brooks is a guy I think the Packers are extremely high on. The mock drafts, redrafts had him going as a possible first-round pick for them. So right now the indication is they don't see a need for an immediate replacement at that position.
Maybe they're higher on Wyatt with the new defense. Again, we've talked a lot about Quay Walker being that guy from that draft class of, okay, maybe he needs a new defensive coordinator. Maybe they feel the same about Devontae Wyatt. New defensive coordinator, new scheme will give them a better outlook.
Randy chimes in here. Traded one of your best cornerbacks for a special teams linebacker. Now,
look,
could he end up being a special teams linebacker? Yes. The investment leads me to believe that's not just the plan for him.
Look, I understand. That's a bad look.
Is Rich Bisaccia running roughshod over this draft, too? He got Anders Carlson, who cost the Packers a playoff game, and now he's getting his preferred pick for special teams.
Chase and run rotation linebacker with a skill set for special teams. Again, that is the last sentence of the summary from Dane Brugler's The Beast over The Athletic. If that ends up being the case, is that a good look for Goody?
No.
Of course not.
No.
It's not good. Am I going to remain hopeful?
Gabe.
Am I going to remain hopeful until we know for sure that he's just a special teams linebacker? Certainly. But I think Hopper is going to have the eye of many a Packer fan this training camp.
Gabe, what round are we in?
We're in the third.
Where's Goody had his biggest struggles in the draft?
That's
where we are.
I mean, do you want me to read off the third-round picks?
I mean, might as well.
All right, we're here. We're here. His first third-round pick, Oren Burks. At least he's still in the league. Because his next third-round pick, Jace Sternberger. His next third-round pick, Josiah the Messiah DeGuara. Next third-round pick, Amari Rodgers. Third-round pick last year. Okay, maybe a starter this year. And Sean Ryan. Although it got off to a rocky start when he got suspended his rookie year for a big chunk of games. And then last year has the best, to me, potential to actually hit as a third-round pick in Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, we are in contact with Jason here. It does look like we are going to get a quick drop-in from here before Goody talks at the end. I do see Jason's shining face there for us. Jason, what happened there with that last pick in the... Last pick there in the third round, they got another linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the guy that's going to be I don't want to call him the odd man out, but that, 15 to 20% of the snaps guy that we were talking about earlier tonight. They obviously want Cooper to be the sidekick to Quay Walker. They obviously want Walker to make a huge jump. You don't draft linebackers in the first round to get the same production in year 3 as they've gotten from him in the first 2 years. New scheme. I think they really want him to be a game changer. I felt like last year after the Chicago game, we all kind of thought that Quay was going to have this big Bafo second season, and it didn't happen. So maybe in this system it will happen. You pair him with Edgerrin Cooper, and now you add Tyron Hopper as that, strong side third thumper of a linebacker theoretically, and he doesn't play a whole heck of a lot, but he helps you on special teams. He gives you an alternative to Isaiah McDuffie. It's another one of those not real exciting picks, right? Whereas the running back pick, I think, is really, really interesting. I mean, I heard Daniel Jeremiah, call him the Marshawn Lloyd the best running back in the draft, in his opinion. Now, won a great running back draft, so that's not, like crazy super praise. It's not like he was in the same draft as Bijan Robinson, although he was in the same recruiting class as Bijan Robinson. But the fact that they invested a third-round pick in him, he's 5'8", 220, which I think is really interesting. So he's about as tall as Aaron Jones, but he's more solidly built and
beefier than Aaron
problematic
Jones.
Guy to tackle. Yeah. So again, I don't know what he will be. You look at his numbers and you're definitely not impressed, right? Like he spent 3 years at South Carolina, didn't really do a whole lot, 820 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. But I think it sounds to me like he's kind of a DeAndre Swift kind of guy. Now, all these draft comps, they never compare him to this guy's like A.J. Dillon, who wasn't really productive the last 2 years, right? So if he turns out to be Swift, this is a fantastic pick. But they clearly are not happy with just saying, okay, AJ, we got you back on a bargain basement deal. You can be the backup again, even though you didn't do a whole lot when Aaron Jones was out last year.
What does the Hopper pick mean for Isaiah McDuffie? Because we all assumed that he was going to be one of those guys because we keep hearing how much they like him. So he's the odd man out here, right? Like, he's not even playing 15 to 20% of the snaps.
Well, I don't know anything about Tyron Hopper other than what I've read. And while Isaiah McDuffie was a 6th-round pick, he does have a year that he spent at BC with Jeff Hafley. He is a very high football IQ guy. And at the very least, he's a core special teams guy. But the bottom line is that I don't think looking at Tyron Hopper or the 3rd-round pick track record that you were just running through, that they just brought in Mike Singletary here, right? Like, let's give him the opportunity to compete and see what he does. But, I don't think that this is one of those picks where you're like, well, this guy's clearly coming in to be the starter right away. I mean, the guy had 55 tackles last year. Like, this is not someone that you're looking at going, whoo, what a steal in the 3rd round.
Are you surprised the Packers haven't gone back to the well at offensive line at this point? Obviously, Jordan Morgan was the investment in the 1st round, but you'd think they want to, with the losses they've had at that position, do you think you expect a couple more picks there?
Yeah, Josh, that's a great question. I'll be honest. I thought that I thought that the
Bordellini
2nd, 3rd round pick was going to be a lineman. Like that, after they took Marshawn Lloyd, I thought, okay, they'll grab another lineman here. They've got 8 picks tomorrow. They'll fill a bunch of different spots. So I was legitimately surprised that it was another linebacker, because as we talked about earlier tonight, I don't want to use the word devalued, but they kind of took 2 guys that play 2 positions that have been, to varying degrees, devalued in this league, right? Like a potential strong side linebacker and a running back. And so, again, just because past 3rd round picks like Jay Sternberger, I had never heard Josiah the Messiah. I had not. You may have used that a lot of times over the years, but never with me.
No, that was more of a Scalzo and Brust throwback. That was a shot at Joshine, the former boys he used to hang out with in the afternoon.
Josiah the Pariah now.
It's more apt.
Josiah the Jaguaria. Look, so I'm not. These guys are potential contributors. There's no denying that, and I think Lloyd will certainly. Remember, this deal that they signed A.J. Dillon to guarantees him bupkis. Like, it's a minimum salary deal plus whatever percentage of that $1.45 million they added to his deal. I don't think I've seen it reported how much of that he got, but the bottom line is they could decide at the end of training camp, we like Marshawn Lloyd and we like Emmanuel Wilson and we like some random other running back that they get sometime on day 3 or as an undrafted free agent more than we like A.J. Dillon. It won't cost us anything to cut him, and he can catch on somewhere else. So, you need someone other than Josh Jacobs. The one of my many pet peeves was this idea that Josh Jacobs is so much more durable than Aaron Jones. That's just not true. He missed just as many games over the last 5 years as Aaron Jones did. So you better have a good number 2 and probably a number 3. They didn't bother to bring back Patrick Taylor, who I still thought, I know he made some mistakes on the sideline, but was kind of a valuable piece for them to have. They decided not to bring him back. They have to have some options there, both on their practice squad and 3 guys on the 53. And I don't think that A.J. Dillon, despite how much we all like him as a dude, is guaranteed anything.
We talked about, Jason, heading into this draft, defensive tackle. and how it could be a sneaky need because, well, we don't know what's going on with Kenny Clark and his contract situation. Is not taking a defensive tackle in the first 3 rounds an indication that maybe they might still work out something with Kenny Clark, or maybe they like Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks and some of the depth pieces that they have there more than we think?
Yes. I mean, it's probably a little bit of all of it, but it also could be that none of the guys that they actually liked at the position were there when they were on the clock, right? Like, you know, the Illinois kid that Tausch loves so much, Johnny, as he likes to call him, Jerzon. I really would have liked to have seen him be Packer. Like, he just struck me as, especially with what we've been told about Hafley's system, that he could come in and be that one gap guy who we saw how explosive he was against Wisconsin. That whole game turned when he got kicked out of the game. And so if they had gotten him, then we'd be having a conversation saying, what does this mean for Kenny Clark, right? This guy could be the replacement for Kenny Clark. Now, instead, because of the way the board fell or whatever you want to call it, they don't have a defensive tackle so far. Now, you know, does that mean they got 8 picks tomorrow? Without even, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll trade back and add a couple more even, or maybe they'll manipulate their board. But I really would have liked to have seen Newton. I think he's a really intriguing player. He went to the Commanders. It's not like I'm watching a lot of Washington Commanders games, but I was in Dan Quinn's defense because it sounds like he could be a pretty good player.
Quickly before we let you go speak to Goody, what is the thing you want to know most about these past 2 rounds?
I want to know how the trade unfolded and if Cooper DeJean going at 40 had any role in that trade decision. I don't know if he'll answer that directly or not, but I think that's a really important question. So that way we don't. I hate having to guess. And I will tell you this, and again, I tell you guys this all the time. Nobody cares how I go about my job. They just want me to do my job, right? So me belly aching doesn't do a whole hell of a lot of good. But one of the best things about the early half of my career covering the draft is that Ron or Ted or Mike Sherman, after the draft was over, or when later in Ted's tenure, it would be Goody, Elliott, Schneider, all those guys. We would all get someone one-on-one after it was all over, and we'd be able to ask questions like that where we could just get the information, and he didn't have to do it at a podium with TVs rolling. And I am a little leery that he will. I would love to get the truth, and I don't want him to skirt the truth or kind of obfuscate that answer because, again, Kool-Aid McKinstry went with the pick that the Packers traded. And if we're going to question anything about today's picks, it will be that the Packers were sitting at 41 and Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid were both on the board. So even if one of them went at 40, you would have a shot at the other one. They had Kool-Aid in for a visit. So they had potentially the 2 best remaining corners with 1 pick to go, and they managed to get neither one. And maybe that's fine. Maybe they're fine at corner, and that won't matter. But if they're not, if Eric Stokes continues to have injuries, and if at some point, you know, Jair becomes disgruntled again, and Carrington, the law firm of Ballantyne and Valentine regresses, we're probably going to be paying attention to what those 2 guys do for their respective teams.
Jason, appreciate it, buddy, for you jumping on all throughout the course of the night and enjoyed trying to figure out all those answers from Goody.
Thanks, Jason.
I only dropped the laptop once today, or the iPad once, and I don't think I was on camera yet, so it worked out pretty well. All right, guys, take care.
Hey, things are looking up.
Jason Wilde, again, big thanks to him. Big thanks to Rob Domofsky. Big thanks to Justice Mosqueda, our pals Nick Bornheimer, Alex Patakis from the Unpacked Pod, and, of course, Alex Strouf, who was here earlier today. Hunter over on the Madison side, Chris Larson here on the Milwaukee side. A lot of moving pieces to put this programming out there throughout the course of the evening.
Yeah, it was fun. I think we did a good job here. Let's do it again next year, huh?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure, look, we're going to have something next year because guess what? It's in Green Bay next year.
Yeah.
If I'll tell you what, if we do something, I don't think it's going to be here. In
I
the one
do
call,
think there
that's
might
all
be a change of scenery.
Yeah, I think there's a chance we're maybe up in good old Green Bay.
And that would be even better.
Packers have, as we have mentioned, 8 more picks tomorrow still to go. 1 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, 2 more in the 7th round. So you can enjoy all those picks tomorrow. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning. Alex Strouf, Jesse Nelson will have you covered with a recap of the first 3 rounds to get you ready for day 3 of the NFL Draft. For Josh Dimaggio, I'm Gabe Neitzel. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. This has been ESPN Wisconsin Draft Night.